This is 100 right now. I'll probably charge up.
Meeting, I'm going to start so we can keep on time today and get you out of here. But feel free, you can keep eating, but can everyone hear me, or do I need to use the microphone? Can you all hear me?
We can hear.
Okay. So first, I'm Julie Ford. I wanted to welcome you all here today. We are so excited about this program. Mitchell Slotnick and Diana Coffin, who couldn't be here today, she just some personal stuff going on. Have been working on this for quite a while, about a year, and very excited about the goal of the program, and more excited that you are here. We have so many different people, some brand new to the temple, some longtime members, some of them have been very active, some that are just new and trying to get active. And it's such a wonderful cross-section of the congregation that I think the discussions and the topics and all of the programs we have for you will be enriched because all of you are here. So I just want to thank everyone for participating. I know it's a commitment for the 5 sessions, and we're looking forward to getting to know everyone much, much better. Kind of the goals of the program, which I sent you in the email I sent, but you know, we've had over time many, many very active members. Many active members that were put on the board who have been wonderful, but came to the board sometimes with not the knowledge or background of how the temple works, and had to kind of learn on the job, so to speak. So what we're trying to do is educate and connect with a lot of members, and then depending on your level of interest, you know, see what that level of engagement and what the next steps are going to be as you continue on with your membership in Temple Jeremiah. Some of you might have a desire to be on the board or be president someday, and that's wonderful. Some of you might just want to be an active member, be part of a committee, do a task, lead an event, or those kind of activities, and those are also very, very needed. So what we're going to hope to show you and educate you over the next 5 sessions is everything that goes on at Jeremiah, all of the different workings of Jeremiah, and give you a really good in-depth understanding of the services we provide here at the temple to our congregation, and where our needs are. You know, where you could fit into that leadership spectrum. Thank you. Spectrum is a great word. So that's the goal. This session is more of an introduction and kind of overview platform. A couple little housekeeping things. So number one, if you're done eating, when you are done, there are bins in the back, but feel free to nosh on the cookies and stuff throughout the night. The binders you have in front of you, please bring back each week. In each tab, in each section is information for what's going on in that session. There might be some homework given to you, and that's also in the binder. And there's a lot of other information that some of our speakers might periodically reference. We're not going to read it to you. It's for you to look through and peruse on your own. So the binder's yours to keep. Write on it, make notes. Bring it back. You might be given other handouts throughout the sessions that you can add to it. Anything else I'm forgetting? I think that's pretty much it. So to start us off, Rabbi Cohen is going to give us a Devar Torah, and then we're going to go around and do the introductions. We kind of asked all of you to have a little thought. There's a lot of us, so I want to make sure we have the time to get through everyone. So that's the next couple of days.
Our custom is to recite a blessing before we have the opportunity to study together. It's an opportunity for us to acknowledge that we are going to engage in something special, something that is unique, something that hopefully brings us closer together, and something that hopefully brings us closer to God. And it gives us that opportunity to take what might be an ordinary moment and to lift it up. And so we have a special blessing for study that has the same opening 10 words as most Hebrew blessings, up to the word Vitzivanu. So it starts out, Baruch Atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kishanu b'mitzvotav Vitzivanu, which means, blessed are you, Adonai, our God, ruler of the universe, who makes us holy, or who sanctifies us with commandments, and commanded us to, and then we fill in the blank. So whatever it is that we are about to do together or individually, there are words that we can use to fill in that blank. So for study, we have 3 words that we add in. La'asok, which means to busy ourselves, to engage with. B'divrei, in the words of. And Torah can literally mean 5 books of Moses, Torah. But also it means instruction. So engage with whatever text, whether it's a text that is printed by somebody else, a text that we've put together here that we're going to be using for the next 5 sessions, or a little Devar Torah based on the parashah, the Torah portion for the week. So I invite, if you're comfortable, to please join together with me. If you're only comfortable with the first 10 words, that's good too. The wonderful thing about Hebrew blessings is that you don't have to say them, right? That if you're with somebody or with a group that's saying a blessing, at the very end, you can say Amen, which means me too, right? It's really wonderful. So you can, whether you know the words or don't know the words, you don't have to admit it or don't admit it. You can just say Amen at the end, and you're good. You have now participated fully in the blessing. Okay. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kishanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu la'asok divrei Torah. Amen. Awesome. The Torah portion for this week is Lech Lecha. It's the 3rd Torah portion of the book of Genesis, and it is the first time that God speaks to Abram and Sarai. At this point, they're just Abram and Sarai. They become Abraham and Sarah a few chapters later. And the very first thing that God says, that we have recorded, that God says to Abram, is Lech Lecha. Get up and go. It's not even entirely clear that that's what those 2 words mean. Lech Lecha. First of all, they sound almost like the same word. Lech is the command form of go, move, and Lecha means literally to you. So it's, we think Lech Lecha that, go forth, journey forth, but it's not entirely clear that that's what it means, or what kind of a journey God is telling Abram to take, right? Not from those opening 2 words. Lech Lecha could also translate it to be go into yourself. Look at who you are. Look at what you're doing. Right? Examine your life. Take a spiritual inventory. Figure out who you are and what you're doing and who you'd like to be and what you would like to be doing. Just from those opening 2 words. And I really can't think of a better opening to a Torah portion for an opening of this kind of a program. Because what we're asking ourselves, what we're asking of ourselves and of one another is to take that look. Right? Who are you as a member of Temple Jeremiah? What are you doing now? What would you like to be doing? Who would you like to become? And how does this fit in with our community, with your family, with your partner, with your spouse, with your friends? How does that all come together? Now, the continuation for Abram in this command is to go forth from that which is familiar, from your home, from the place of your birth, from your parents' home, basically from that which is familiar. And to a certain extent, we're asking tonight to do a little bit of that as well. To move a little bit away from what's comfortable. from what you've been doing here at Temple so far, and maybe to move into something new, something unfamiliar, something a little bit risky, something that might not be as comfortable, but an opportunity to learn and grow. Because for Abram to become a leader, he needed to leave that which was familiar and to go into unexplored territory, both externally, physically, but certainly also internally. So I want to echo Julie's words of gratitude and appreciation that all of you have carved out a significant amount of time to be here, to be a part of this program. And as we're moving through it, we want to hear how this is going, right? So there'll be lots of opportunities to check in formally, but also informally. So if we need more time, less time, more things, please, please, please let us know, because that's a part of the journey as well. So again, thank you so much for all that you've done and all that you will do. Amen.
Okay, so we asked you to give a short little brief kind of bio overview of yourself, how long you've been at Temple, your family makeup, maybe the town you live in, just so people can get to know you, what you do for a living, and if you have areas of interest or special skill sets that you would bring, that's of interest as well. And also, most importantly, what made you come tonight? What was the driver? You know, like, and everyone has something different, but we're interested to know what spoke to you. So, Avi, can I pick on you to go first?
Sure.
And
I have some notes.
just talk loudly.
Okay. Hi, everyone. I'm Avi Greenfield. I live in Glenview, Illinois, with my wife, Allison, and our two daughters. Sloan, whose 11th birthday is actually today, and she wasn't thrilled that I decided to come here, but I thought this was important. And, I guess I'll jump to that one. I'm eager to participate in this group, to contribute, to have those opportunities to learn, to grow, and to get to know my community better. So we've been here for 5 years, been members here for 5 years. Really joined because it's such a warm environment. Everyone from the clergy to the leaders to the members, everyone is very warm and open and welcoming, and we really appreciated that. So my background is in content management software technology. Been working now for just 2 months for actually an Israeli company called Sunday Sky. We do personalized video, so AT&T will send a video bill to all of their customers on a monthly basis. It kind of walks you through all of your charges, gives you a nice comfort level now that everything's okay with your account. And so I work from home office in Glenview, and I travel a little less than half the time. In terms of skills, I think I have some technology savvy, social media awareness and interest, and look forward to learning and growing with each of you.
Awesome, welcome.
I don't have any notes. Sorry. So my name is Scott Gertz. I've been a member here for, say, about 10 years. My wife, Julie Gertz. Daughter, Sophie, who's 15, and then our son, Joey, who's 12. So wonderful bat mitzvah experience with Sophie, and Joe has his on deck in April. Professionally, I'm an attorney with the Illinois Department of Human Services, but the rabbi, unbeknownst to him, just spoke to me because I truly am out of my comfort zone, because I am now, for the first time, as we had a little discussion here at our table, I am a teacher as well. So I have 2 jobs. I'm an adjunct professor at Roosevelt University, criminal justice majors. So it's a double career for me, and it's been great. So why am I on this committee? I'm a firm believer that you get out what you put in, and I've always been somebody that likes to roll up my sleeves, and if I'm going to be involved in something, I want to join and be a worker bee. I have constraints. I have a lot of coaching with my kids, civic boards, and obviously 2 jobs. But I'm going to do something for Temple Jeremiah as long as I'm going to be a member here. So I'm flattered that Julie, Mitch, and Ken, suggested this for me, and looking forward to working with all of you.
Wonderful, thank you.
You got to pass. My name is Dawn Lavin. I've been a member here at least 15 years. I have 3 children. I have twins that are going to be 20, and my youngest is going to be 16. They've done Sunday school, bar mitzvahs, confirmation, and post-confirmation. My son right now, my youngest is Jetty president. So, I live in Wilmette. Let's see, I am a criminal defense attorney. I was a Cook County public defender. I've been doing criminal defense work on my own for 22 years. Took this as a compliment when I got the email, and let's see, skills, I guess I'm better at negotiations because I do it every day for a living, and my clients are not generally nice people, but I'm trying to do the best job I can to help them through the criminal justice system in Cook County. So,
Thank you.
I'm Jennifer Reback. I live in Deerfield. I have 3 kids also, 9, 8, and 5. I've been a member here for just a year, and we joined Jeremiah because I grew up in Deerfield, and I didn't know much about Jeremiah, but we'd been away for about 10 years. Came back when our kids were littler, and I just had always heard such wonderful things about Rebecca and Dr. Lipsky. And so I never heard anything bad about anywhere else. I just always heard such wonderful. But I just always heard, their names always came up. So we came and visited here, and we just loved it. So my kids have loved it. We're very happy here. And I'm not working right now. I'm just home with my kids. I'm a speech pathologist, and I'm hoping to get back to that actually this year. And I was looking forward to coming tonight because I love just lifelong learning opportunities, which I looked at this to be that, as well as I like doing things. Since I am home so much and running around with my kids since they're little, I like doing things that is different than that, and it is more about more adult stuff. So I was very happy and honored to be asked to do it.
Thank you.
I'm Melissa Field. We live in Glencoe. I actually grew up in Tampa, Florida, and my husband's from St. Louis, so we're pretty much transplants here. And we joined Jeremiah because we were introduced to it through this Latinx family. And Valerie took me to a couple of the women's theaters, and Barry and Mitch took us to several events, and we just, sort of fell in love with the community. And it reminded me a lot of the Jewish experience that I had growing up. We have 2 kids, Darcy and Mason. I do product development work for education companies. So I guess the easiest thing to describe it as would be leapfrog, but not for consumers, more for school systems, is basically what I do. And why did I agree to take this? I can't say no.
Perfect volunteer.
No, I come from a background where my parents just really modeled giving back, and both my parents were very involved with the synagogue and the Jewish community, and it's just something that's kind of been ingrained in
Yeah, just good. So I'm Judy Craven, and we're from Deerfield. My husband Jack and I are from Deerfield with our 3 daughters, 2 in college, 1 in high school. Been a member for I think around 15 years, and we joined Jeremiah. I'm almost going to cry. We joined Jeremiah for really the same reason that we're still here, which is just the connection we've always felt here from before we belonged. We used to come here with the Pat Shabbats and with my parents, and we just always felt such a strong connection, and we brought the kids up from the baby naming to the bat mitzvahs, and something here is just always resonating with our family. Some of the programs that Steve has given have changed our lives as parents, and I just can't even say it all. And now I'm a meditation and mindfulness teacher. I was a lawyer, but in my more recent years, my path has changed a little bit, and a lot of things here are changing, and also opening up in that realm also, which is just wonderful. So we just feel the temple culture means everything to us and feels like a family. So that's why we joined, and that's absolutely why we're still here. And that's why I agreed to be in this class. And I am very out of my comfort zone, so the departure spoke to me. Leadership is a tiny bit out of my comfort zone, really because of the temple. It's become more, but I just want to take the next step in becoming more engaged and invested in learning about the temple, wherever I go now, and teaching it. And my skills that I bring, I think, are just the connection that I feel for the temple, and I hope that's a skill we can use. But I'm honored to be here and happy to meet all of you. So thank you.
In approximately 215 days, my trailing third leaves for college.
Approximately 250.
Yeah, I've got an app counter. I checked it today. Raised children 3 in Wilmette on a wonderful cul-de-sac, Meadow Drive, that had a very high concentration of Temple Jeremiah members. More recently, I moved to an apartment in Winnetka. We joined Jeremiah about 20 years ago. Coming from Beth Emmet, primarily because there was no parking lot at Beth Emmet. So it was location, location, location. But then soon thereafter, Rabbi Paul Cohn came, and that was the icing on the cake, because he and I have a shared connection to Osrui. I grew up there, as well as all 3 of my children went through Holocene, which was probably my best thing I've done as a parent, is they all went there. In terms of my business, imagine having me work with a senior you care about. All their financial and business matters would be organized, analyzed, and up to date. Karen Giddles, the senior's finance manager. I don't sell products. I'm in-home and deliver problem-solving solutions. Why am I here? I'm seeking a stronger spiritual connection. What skills do I bring? Financial management, organization, and a good team player. Thank you.
Wonderful.
My name is Randy Gillespie. I have 3 children, Sarah, who's 11, Maddie, who's 9, and Liam, who is 7 3/4. I am from New Jersey. I married a Catholic. Jeremiah is very inclusive. I also have a child with a disability. She happens to have Down syndrome. Jeremiah is very inclusive. We're very involved with the North Shore community. We live in Northbrook. All 3 kids attend District 28 schools, and I work as a director of special needs services and as the family support coordinator for the National Association for Down Syndrome. And I'm a chauffeur, and I, like all of you, kind of am really happy that I'm not with my kids right now. Like, seriously, who's kidding you? So what do I bring to the table? I think I bring a sense of leadership. I bring a sense of organization. I bring a sense of advocacy and awareness, and I'm pretty fierce when it comes to not hearing no or allowing somebody to tell me no. And I'm here because I got a call and it sounded pretty great. So that's it.
Randy, how many years at your?
Oh, two. Two.
So I'm Suzanne Sands, and I'm here with my husband Matt. So I'm going to say a few things for both of us, and then he can speak a little bit shorter. We live in. Well, you don't want to say. So we live in Lake Forest. He is Jewish, and I was raised actually Lutheran. We decided prior to having our kids that we would raise them in a Jewish home, and so that's what we've embarked on. While I have not converted, I feel a very strong connection with Judaism, and it's the only religion that I currently participate in with my family. We have 3 children. Jack is 11, he's in 6th grade. Hannah is 8, she is in 3rd grade, and Emma is 4 and attends preschool. Although if you see Hannah and Emma, you will think that they are maybe only 2 years apart because Hannah is exceptionally small and Emma is exceptionally tall. So soon she will be the little big sister. And we'll have to work on that. We've been members here for about a year and a half. We actually were at B'nai Torah in Highland Park and became very involved there towards the end, and it became clear to us that it was no longer going to be a sustainable congregation and decided to look elsewhere. I had been taking a class, Intro to Judaism, through the URJ and met a few people who were members here through that class. I said, oh, I think we should look there because I found them to be interesting people. And when we learned about the demographics of Jeremiah, it was the right match for us because in Lake Forest there are not many Jewish families. And we didn't want to be in a congregation where everybody was coming from the same community because our kids were already going to be a minority wherever we went in terms of being from Lake Forest. So we wanted to be in a place where there were lots of people coming from lots of places. We've been thrilled with the warmth of this community and the welcoming that we've had and that we continue to experience in everything that we've attended. I, before having our kids, was a teacher for 10 years. I taught 4th and 5th grade in Wilmette. A few of you said you were in Wilmette. I taught at Harvard for 5 years. And now I serve on a lot of education-oriented boards for our schools up in Lake Forest and do a lot of volunteer leadership in those capacities. And I'm now doing a little part-time work through Harvard for some teacher coaching and math instruction rating for the National Teacher Education Center that they have. We were excited to get invited to come to this because, like I said, at the end in B'nai Torah, we got very involved. I was on the education committee. I was going to family school with my kids. Matt was on a rabbi search committee a few years before. And what we learned from those experiences is that the more that we put in and the more that we got involved, the more connected we felt, but also the more connected and engaged our kids felt, and their experience was improved by the fact that we had these connections and more people came up and talked to them when they would go to temple, and all of that was very powerful for them. And so when we were invited to come do this, we knew that we wanted to take the time to do it so that we could get more involved and feel even more connected than we already do. The skills that I bring are probably organizational and leadership and communications. I do a lot of communications for the boards that I work on.
So I'm Matt Sands again, and I've prepared some remarks. Ditto. A couple things about myself. Unlike Suzanne, who grew up mostly in New England and other parts of the country, I grew up in the Chicago area. I grew up in Glenview and went to New Trier, and my family attended Judea Mitzvah in Skokie. And I have really fond memories of those days, and particularly the weekend youth group retreats with people who really I didn't tend to go to school with. Most of the kids there at Judea Mitzvah were from Skokie or other nearby suburbs, but we became really good friends and shared obviously commonality around our Jewishness. In my professional life, I'm a corporate finance person. I worked for the first 11 years of my career at General Electric. In 11 years, I was in 7 different businesses on both the industrial and capital side, and I've been the last 12 years at Citigroup. I'm currently the lead finance officer for a division of the Citigroup's credit card business, and I also manage M&A finance and capital management strategies within that part of the business. So, you know, one of the things that I think I bring to the table are pretty good analytical skills, communication skills, and I love collaborating with people. For those of you who work in a corporate environment, you know that to get anything done, you have to be able to work with a diverse group of people, to engage them in different ways, and I enjoy doing that, and I think I do that fairly well. I was excited to participate in the class, not only because it meant some evenings out with Suzanne, which we cherish, but for me it was important to connect with other members of the Jewish community, and I shared a little bit about growing up and being at Judea Mitzvah. Suzanne mentioned we live in Lake Forest now. It's not a large Jewish community. I worked at Citigroup, which in New York has a fairly good Jewish contingent, but not here in Chicago. And I miss that. I miss the ethos and the connection that you can't really describe or put your finger on, but you feel it when you meet somebody. And so I wanted to connect more in that way and connect with all of you. And I also hope that by Suzanne and me participating more in activities, committees, and leadership within the community here, that our kids will get to meet some people as well. And that's it. Thanks.
Hi, my name is Jill Ozer. I live in Deerfield, and we've been members, or yes, I and my children have been members here for about 12 years. My kids are 20, 18, 16, and 14, so I've only got 2 left at home, so it's kind of nice to be away from them, even though they're older, and I have to deal with homework. I currently been co-managing running a gift shop here, so please stop in during Sunday school. If you'd like to volunteer, that would be lovely too. I was really excited, and not as everybody was, to be invited here tonight. My life is one of those where when it rains, it pours. I've taken care of my kids for a really long time. As they've gotten older, it's time for me to kind of get back into a career. So I had 2 part-time businesses, rehabbing houses, just like on TV, where you flip houses, which is fun, and not always as easy as it is on TV. And I'm also a personal assistant, so I help many older clients take care of their finances and books and so on. So then I got a full-time job right before I got the call from Ken and was invited to come here. So I've been adjusting to a 40-hour-a-week office thing, which I haven't done in 21 years. So that's been an adjustment for me. It's been an adjustment for my children because Mom, why aren't you here at 3:30 every day? So it's been a lot of fun, and I actually am starting another new job in January because they're giving me an extra 50% in salary. So, kind of when it rains, it pours in life. But I think this would be fun. I love being in sisterhood. I love helping out in the gift shop. And I've been trying to figure out in the last year or so, how can I move into a different aspect of helping out and doing things here at the temple, because even though my children are almost done with religious school, I don't want to be done with temple, as most of many people do. To me, this is the community, and I want to stay here. Thanks.
My name's Babette Sanders, and I have been a member of Jeremiah for about 21, 22 years. My family lives in Glenview. We have 2 children, one who is almost 28, and the other who is just 24, who, because of her connections to Jeremiah and her religion, is in Israel for 5 months, doing an internship with a program called Masa, which her portion is Career Israel. So they place young adults in an internship in their field in Israel. And so she's been very excited. I'm going to visit next month, and I'm very excited for that opportunity as well. In my day job, I am a physical therapist. I've been a physical therapist for 40-something years now, and I've loved every minute of it. I teach full-time at Northwestern University at the medical school. We have a doctor of physical therapy program, and so I've been teaching there for a very long time. I'm trying to think back about what attracted us to Jeremiah versus what keeps us at Jeremiah. We joined when my son was starting first grade, and part of it was we had come to, I think, children's services on the high holidays a number of times and felt very connected. At that point, we had a female assistant rabbi as well as a female cantor, and I liked the idea that my daughter would have role models on the bima, so that her world was open should she decide that that was something she wanted to do. One thing that attracted us at the time, we had two working parents, both downtown. Hebrew school was only one day a week, as compared to some other communities. It certainly filled our religious needs, but also made being able to keep up with religious school more reasonable for us than having to try and organize more carpools. We have been thrilled to be members here. The temple has supported us through the good times, through the bar mitzvahs and confirmations and post-confirmation, as well as various other life cycle events. I had some illness a few years ago, and the temple community was incredibly supportive of me, and I think has kept us here. As I think, Jill, you just said something about you don't want to drop out after your kids are finished. I realized how hard it is to stay connected, that I really have to make an effort sometimes to stay connected. It was one thing when I was here every Sunday morning. I was here every Sunday morning, or every other Sunday morning. Once we stopped coming on Sunday mornings, I had to decide it was important for me to continue coming. I have been in leadership roles in my professional organization really since I was a student, to the point that I had a major responsibility at our national level. I tend to take leadership roles. I've recently been chair of the Faculty Senate for Northwestern University, University. So when given the opportunity, I seek leadership roles, and this just seemed like another way. I've dabbled with different responsibilities in Temple over time. This year, I took the opportunity. I represent the women of Jeremiah on the Temple board, and so I've recently joined the Temple board. And so I'm at a point of what do I want to be when I grow up? As my life changes a little bit, and I have different times, I don't have to worry about carpools anymore. It's how do I want to spend my time? And certainly to Temple and Jewish organizations is a high priority.
Great, thank you. Oh, I'm sorry, there's one more.
It's okay. I'm Lisa Shergan. My husband is Brian, and I have two children, both boys. I'm from Deerfield.
Lisa, can you speak up?
I'm Lisa Shergan. I have a husband. His name's Brian. I have two boys. We live in Deerfield. I have a 16-year-old and a 13-year-old. And we've been members for about 7 years. I currently do kitchen and bath and cabinetry, home office design. I used to be an engineer and did programming with Arthur Anderson and Anderson Consulting, and then took time off and kind of started a second career probably about 2 or 3 years ago. So that's what I do now. I've been fairly involved with Jeremiah at a participation level. I've been in charge of the Women's Seder for a couple of years. I've been on the Education Committee. I've been on the committee for the gala for a few years. And I always enjoy being involved in the people that I've met through that. We joined Jeremiah. We had been at a different temple in the area for a year, about 8 years ago, and we just didn't feel a connection there, even though we knew some people that went there. They weren't very involved and didn't go to functions, so we we decided to look again and took a look at Jeremiah and really just felt the warmth that was here from the people that were here and enjoyed when we come in. And everyone was friendly and welcoming, and so that's why we joined here, and that's continued through the committees I've been on. I've made friends and really have enjoyed that connection. I'm here is, you know, I was definitely very honored when I got the phone call, and I remember thinking, oh, well, that'll be really interesting to learn more about the temple and continue my involvement. And my husband said to me, you know, if you go to that leadership, they're expecting you to lead something. I said, oh yeah, I guess that might be true. And that's definitely a little out of my comfort zone. I'm a good committee member and doer, and I'm a good one of the skills I bring our organization and planning. I'm not always the best. I don't want to say I'm not a good leader, but I'm not always comfortable in that role. But that's something to, you know, to try and stretch and do. So that's part of why I'm here.
I just wrote this. My name's Howard Nixon. I live nearby in Glencoe. I have two kids, a freshman in college and a sophomore in New Trier. One goes Sundays. I'm not positive. I think I've been at this temple for about 10 years now. Both my kids were bar mitzvah here. Why did we pick Jeremiah? And we live in another town. My wife is actually a convert, and it was important to us to kind of take our time and pick the correct temple, not just one that was real convenient around the corner. So, and that's what I think Jeremiah stood out too. I should mention from that standpoint that even now and back then as well, the membership seemed to, a lot of the members had to make an effort actually to get here, which I thought was kind of different, not just because it was walking distance for kids to go to Hebrew, right? What else did I want to say here? Of course, at the beginning we treated with both Rabbi Cohn, obviously, and Cantor Amy, and just the whole group in general. Now we're excited again with Adam Cahan being Cantor, of course. We've seen him for a lot of years too. My career is in asset management, as well as corporate retirement. My company is nearby in Northbrook. My main skills I focus on are leadership, business relationships, business relations, the strategic direction stuff and planning and implementing stuff. I'm here really because I felt that I want to be more involved with our temple, and hoping I can do that in some way as well as hoping I can help if I can. I actually lost my dad this year, and he was very involved with this temple, so I grew up with that all the time. I don't think I've been as good as disciplined as he was throughout this course, so I want to get better at that. So that's probably another driving force for me, and that's it.
Good evening. Phil Kraus. We have a family of 5 from Glencoe, 2 boys and a girl. We have a junior in college, a freshman in college, and a sophomore at New Trier. And we still remain busy, though we have 2 out of the house. We've been at Temple Jeremiah for about 11 years. Everyone has been our mitzvah here, at least in some shape or form, and we are diligent in staying committed to this temple and to be as active as possible. My work activity, I'm an interventional cardiologist at the North Shore System. I base most of my time at Skokie Hospital, and it's one of the reasons I was late this evening, and also on staff at 3 other North Shore hospitals. I have teaching privileges at the University of Chicago and at Rush University Medical Center, as well as shadowing responsibilities at the University of outside Chicago Medical School. The reason we joined Temple Jeremiah was actually interesting because we are the suburban nomads of the Jews of the North Shore. We started at Am Yisrael. When I was a child, Rabbi Frankel marched with Martin Luther King in Selma. So we had a very strong connection. He was actually kicked out of Beth Hillel because of that march. And we stayed with the rabbi and joined Am Yisrael from Beth Hillel, which really didn't have a temple in and of itself. It had this house across from New Trier. We used to have our Sunday school classes at Loyola Academy. We go in on Sunday school, take the crucifix off the wall, put it in the drawer, class, put it back up when we were done. They couldn't tell that there were the Jews there the day before. So we've had a wide variety of experiences and went through a couple other temples. But that didn't work out for the kids. We were looking for really a strong place. My wife, Jackie, who was a nurse, she grew up in a traditional synagogue in the city. Ezra's Israel. I grew up in a conservative, so we thought we should combine that and try and stay conservative. So we went to visit a couple other temples and really didn't find that we were connected with those temples, didn't feel a sense of belonging. I had a more strong sense of belonging at Hillel, at my school, undergraduate at Indiana University. When my dad died, that's where I went. So these other temples didn't quite serve, so we had some recommendation by Gail Madro to come over and check out Jeremiah, and Jack and I walked in on a Thursday afternoon, and there was Ann Litsky welcoming us through the door. Rabbi Paul Cohen came out, and we felt more invited and welcome in that little half hour than in all the years of these other temples. That's when we knew that we belonged here at Temple Jeremiah. So that's really our segue of why we agreed to, why I agreed to join this leadership group, development group, is to try and give something back to the temple that's made us feel so welcome and brought our Judaism to this level. In addition, more recently, the day after Yom Kippur, saw in the news that there were swastikas painted on the A.E. Pye House in Emory, and saw pictures of the swastikas at the A.E. Pye House. Called my son, who's in A.E. Pye, Illinois. He had heard of this. And by the time I had called him, he had gathered all of his fraternity brothers in the front of A.E. Pye at U of I. Before noon on a Sunday, all the brothers were out of bed, and they took a picture in front of A.E. Pye and sent that on Facebook and all the other social media sites. And in the caption, they said, "We stand with A.E. Pye Emory against anti-Semitism." Not only did they post that, but they volunteered and invited several other A.E. Pye chapters across the country, including Virginia and USC and Texas, to their A.E. Pye houses to continue this on. So this is a passion that's obviously been passed down to my family, and we would like to give something back. So the skills that I have to offer for this group include my experience with some leadership. I also have developed a strong capability to lead in a diverse variety of individuals. Being in a cardiology practice, we come across a wide variety of individuals from a wide variety of socioeconomic standards and different, so I have a good sense of diversity, can deal with a lot of different types of people. Served as a member of the Temple Board Selection Committee here at Jeremiah, and my passion will continue during this.
Glencoe Road here. I'm Barry Slotnick, also from Glencoe. Been a member here, I think, for 55 years. Pomegranate juice works. I've been coming here my whole life, almost literally, and it's interesting. My wife Natalie and my children Ben and Carly, 9 and 6, also come here, of course. It's interesting having come here for so long how my perspective has changed, and I have to say that being here now is probably the most enjoyable time it's ever been with the family and just how things have changed here. So I'm going out of order a bit, but why did I join the group? Well, I was asked to join, so it looks like a great opportunity, and hearing all of you talk, I think it really will be. I was fortunate enough to be asked to start the green team here 2 years ago, and we're nearing our certification. Judy and Danny and our team. But hopefully that work will continue. So I think I can hopefully bring some of the leadership I've held on that team to this group. Some more green ideas, because I think we've done some great work, but there's a lot more to go on. In my professional life, I own a business where I manufacture training equipment for teams, training and rehab equipment, so it's very enjoyable to work with a lot of pro and college teams, physical therapy, high schools. But it's great to be here, meet all of you, and hope I can be a good help.
Thank you very much. Hi, I'm Cindy Morheim. This is Rob. We have two boys. They're 10 and 12. We live in Wilmette. We moved here 3 years ago from Los Angeles. I'm born and raised Los Angeles, California girls. This winter killed me, but it is what it is. Oh, we picked Jeremiah for all the same reasons that I think everybody else picked Jeremiah. I know I didn't write anything down, sorry. It's so welcoming here. I mean, we felt that way the minute we walked in the door. And we felt like it was home. We just feel very comfortable here. I got involved right away with the new membership committee, and I've really enjoyed doing that. I'm incredibly organized, and I'm not afraid to take on any type of leadership role. Right now, I stay at home, take care of our boys, but I want to start working again, still trying to figure that out. And oh, I'm not officially Jewish. We have a lot of similarities. I was raised Christian, and I took an Intro to Judaism class before we got married. Absolutely fell in love with Judaism, and we're very happy to raise our kids with this faith. I mean, I just personally love it. I haven't converted either, but I kind of struggle with that. I should probably talk to you about that. But anyway, I love this temple. I love being part of this temple. I love being part of this community. I think I said one from Wilmette. And I'm really involved with the kids' school. So I'm get up and volunteer every chance I can get. That's just how I am. That's it. You're up.
I'm her husband. My name is Rob. I actually grew up in Champaign. I had an interesting religious life. It was a very small community, Jewish community in Champaign. So there was essentially one temple for the townies. So there was Hillel for the university, and there was one temple for Reform, very Reformed. But the rest of my mother's family was all here. So my grandfather founded a temple in Skokie, which was a Sephardic temple. So during the week I would go to this extraordinarily Reformed religious school in Champaign. On the weekends I would come up here to a Sephardic Orthodox temple in Skokie. It was literally every single weekend back and forth. I graduated from college and ran screaming to Los Angeles to be in the entertainment business and to find my wife Cindy. I'm the executive producer of a morning television show, a very, very early morning television show. It's called You and Me This Morning, and while I lead a team of 30 people, I essentially have those skills, which is true. I'm the kind of guy who will have like 10 really bad ideas and one, borderline genius idea, so that gets me by. And like Cindy said, we moved here 3 years ago, and we looked for a connection. And in Los Angeles, we had connections, but they were mostly friends, and it was a very, very, Hollywood was an incredibly Jewish community. So we had a ton of friends, although we, for whatever reason, never joined, a temple. We would go to high holiday services, and we would meet people who would take us to their temples, but we just never found anything. And the minute we walked in here on a Friday night a year ago, we met Rabbi Cohen and Ann Litsky, like you guys said. Exactly right. We immediately felt a connection here. could not be happier to be here. The reason I think we both were honored to be here for this is, Judy was based on guilt, and we would feel really guilty if we said no. Guiltlessly said yes.
Thank you.
I'm Marcia Osher, and I live in Northbrook, over on Sunset Ridge, and I have a 15-year-old and a 13-year-old. And I've been a member here for about 13 years. My daughter was 2, and I came here to learn Hebrew by reading Cantor Sussman's Lips at Tashabat. So I'm in a mixed marriage. I'm the non-Jew, but my husband says that I'm more Jewish than his mother, which is a compliment, but I've become very immersed in this temple. It has been wonderful and wonderfully warm and embracing for me. Let's see. In my previous life, I spent a lot of time with cardiologists, repping Cardizem, a heart drug, for about 15 years down at Northwestern. And now I am a professional volunteer person, and I do a lot of things. I'm very honored to run the Family Promise program here at Temple, which is fabulous, and you'll be hearing from me where we host families that are temporarily displaced for a week, and they live here in the temple, and it's just a wonderful program. And why did I join? Rabbi told me early on, Marcia, if Julie Ford ever calls you, just don't say no to her. So when I got the call, I was honored to be part of this. So that's it. So thank you, and I really look forward to getting to know all of you. Thanks.
My name is Dan Schwartz, and Julie, I'm sorry I said no. Call, but I now know that was a mistake.
And it doesn't work.
And it doesn't work. No, I ended up calling back after that. But family dynamic, my wife Alice and I, our 2 kids, Claire and Jared. Claire's 12, Jared is 9. We live in Deerfield. We've been a member. I had to ask Allison because I wasn't sure. I forgot. So she said it was 4. So I remember that it took us about 7 years to find Jeremiah because we were temple shopping. And I think for every holiday, we would go someplace different and kind of walk out of there, and it didn't feel right. But when we came to Jeremiah, it felt right. I think we only came back one other time, but after that, we made a decision. We thought we were home. Where do I work? I work for Discover. I won't hold that against, and the credit card side, capital markets, but I won't hold that against Citi. It's a fine credit card. Why did I take this class? I sit in meetings all day. Probably sit in meetings all day. I was just looking for another opportunity to sit in a meeting. So, what skills do I bring? As Julie knows, when she first met us, she came to welcome us to Jeremiah. She looked in the backyard and she saw my garden. Right? So I have a vegetable garden, and I work with the garden, committee, and so we've been. It's their 2nd year. So the garden that you see out there that produces vegetables, I'm part of that. And I enjoy that. And I was looking for another opportunity to get involved. So that's what I'm here.
4 years.
4 years.
Go for it.
Go.
Yeah, sure.
I'll switch over to this side. So one's next to me. My name is Michael Fine. My family and I joined Temple Jeremiah, I think back in 2002. Both of our boys, Jeremy and Jacob, went to religious school, bar mitzvah here. And I don't ever remember not being here. About 4.5 years ago, I was driving to work, got hit by a truck, lost my arm in the accident. My whole life changed in that 2-year period. I lost both my folks right around at the same time. I really came to appreciate
I've sat on the board of Kesha, working with kids with disabilities, developmental, other teachers special ed. It's become a passion. I speak to kids in junior highs about overcoming obstacles, dealing with depression, a whole slew of things change. The spiritual journey that I've been on this last 4.5 years has been nothing short of amazing. So when the opportunity came to get involved here with my friend the rabbi again, I couldn't think of anything else that I'd rather do more. So I'd like to do something along the lines of giving back to some communities, some type of outreach program. That's kind of where I see my my future being. I'm a lawyer by profession. I call myself a recovering attorney because I don't practice anymore. I see doctors for a living. I live in chronic residual limb pain due to the accident. So I do a lot of Bikram yoga about 7 days a week. So other than that, I have time. I got a senior now and a sophomore in high school, so I'm kind of role reversed. My wife is now working full time, and I'm in my home. I'm very grateful to do that. So that's it.
Thank you.
I'm Karen Brown, and now I took off my glasses, so I really can't see everybody. At least I can see what's in front of me.
Everybody's still here.
Okay, I'm married to Steve Brown, past 13 years. Steve has 3 boys, they're all in their 30s. Everybody that lives out of town. I have 2 boys, they're in their 30s, they don't live here either. So I don't have any family in the first year. So I'm kind of looking for a family here. Anybody want to sign up? I've lived in Highland Park for the past 13 years. Before that, I lived in Lake Bluff, and I was a member of Congregation Solel 15 years. So my children were raised there. After marrying Steve, I joined Temple Jeremiah because he had been here longer than I had been in Solel, and it was clear he wasn't going to leave. So I had to join here. So contrary to most of your stories, I'm kind of here by default. I said, okay, I'll join here. Just really got involved here the past few years. I joined the choir and have met some nice friends, and recently got involved because I heard that there was, well, I'll get into that in a minute. My career is an occupational therapist. I don't know what that is, you can ask me later. But it's nice to hear some other people are in education and in therapy and social work. I also got very involved during my kids' lives in Cub Scouts, PTO, things like that. Worked in a few different offices and different things. I just retired from occupational therapy in June this year. I've been there, been doing the past 17 years. I've been at Claremont School, which is a school, public school, for severely retarded children, severely handicapped children. And before that, I worked in hospitals, both in Arizona, and I started at my police hospital. So when I retired, everybody kept saying to me, what are you going to do when you retire? And I had this list. And one of the things on the list was get involved in my community, because coming to Highland Park without children, I really didn't know anybody here. And I was new to the temple, so I was kind of lost, really. And as those of you who have retired know, when you lose that anchor, and you lose that social environment, you need to find something else. You really do. I really felt like I needed to find something. So on my list was get involved in the community, get involved in my temple somehow. So of course I started in the office, and when I learned that there was going to be another service for families with who had special needs individuals in family, I said, okay, I'll get in on that. That sounds good. I think I could do some of my background for that. And the Rabbi Cohn, he said, well, Amy just left, so would you head the committee? Because she was in charge of that. So that's how that happened. So, shows when you raise your hand, things happen like that. But I'm delighted. It's really exciting, and I'm really happy to be part of that. We're planning programs for families with special needs individuals. So I agreed to take this class because it really came at a time in my life when I was looking for some structure, looking to better some leadership skills. I'm not usually within a few years, decided to join the community. And Karen, you were talking about not having family around and looking for, community in the community here. We have a wonderful opposite situation. We have tons of family here. My husband and I both grew up here. We've never left the state of Illinois except to go on vacation. We didn't come here looking for community. And despite that, we have more in our community. And I remember writing a note, Julie, after we were here for a year, saying that I could not believe that even though we were looking for community, there were so many people here that we were finding in our lives. We think it's an extraordinary place. We're really grateful to be part of this community. My involvement here is I'm a groupie on Saturday mornings here. When possible, if we're going out of town, I plan my travel. Try not to miss a Saturday morning here. And we're grateful in every way I can do that. I hope to do that.
My name is Tammy Hammersley, and see some really nice familiar faces here, and I'm excited to meet the faces of the people who I don't know yet. I am originally from Connecticut. My husband is from Wilmette, and we grew up pretty different religious households. I grew up in a conservative household. When I was about 12, we became kosher in our house. I went to Hebrew day school. I also got very active in B'nai B'rith as a teenager, and became president of my chapter in B'nai B'rith and went to Jewish camps. My husband grew up in a more Reform environment, Reform Jewish environment. We have 3 children. We have 8, 10, and 12 going on 21. And she is going to be optimistic here next year. We live in Glenview, and we've been a member at Jeremiah for, this is our 5th year. And we came here when our daughter was going into 3rd grade. We actually switched from Chabad, and so this was a pretty big change for us. We wanted more of a middle ground with my husband and my different religious upbringings, and we really felt very comfortable. And it was really, a lot of it was just a gut feeling when we walked in here and felt all the warmth and the welcoming. And we just knew that this was going to be a great community for us to be a part of. I work, actually I'm also a recovering attorney, and practiced for a number of years, and then went into legal recruiting because I really wanted to work a lot more with people and a lot less with looking at documents all day long, which is what I was doing. So went into legal recruiting. I'm now working as a recruiter for a company called Navigant Consulting in the city. And we joined Jeremiah, kind of what I was saying before, just we really felt a strong sense of belonging and warmth. I also, we live in an area of Glenview that's very small, and a lot of diversity, but not a lot of Jewish kids and Jewish families. So it was really important to me that we had our kids coming to a Jewish environment and starting to instill that Jewish sense of pride and spirituality in them starting at a young age. I agreed to take this class. I actually, it was interesting, I did attend a meeting way back when where there was a lot of talk about creating a program like this. And then unfortunately, I just got busy with life and stopped, attending the meetings, but then sort of got sucked back in the back end with, with a
question. Why I joined Jeremiah? Well, Ken Horch, our local agent, is actually a CJE board member and serves on the Development Celebrate CJE committee. And now his wife, Allie, in Springfield is my boss. So they did a good job of recruiting me. Temple Jeremiah was definitely on our list of places to look at, but we probably would have waited until we started religious school if the two of them had encouraged me to take a look now and told me about like the new family member rate and all these great programs for young children to become just a fixture at Tot Shabbat. It's really important for us to raise Lewis in a Jewish home, and so we just bring him to every event that's appropriate for him to go to, and he's just really taken to it in such a heartwarming way, and he just loves coming here. He's actually upset that he couldn't come with me tonight, especially when he heard the rabbi and Ken, we're going to be here. It's kind of like, why don't I get to go? So he's just thrilled to be here. Obviously, in the Jewish community professional, the Jewish community is something that's very important to me. I grew up at Oak Park Temple, which has a very similar feel and dynamic to Temple Jeremiah, so basically we're all at us at Flow. It's just been a good experience. You know, as a nonprofit professional, I bring a lot of skills that you would anticipate me to have with, you know, over 10 years of experience. So just nonprofit, organizational management, event planning, fundraising, board engagement, leadership development, those types of things. And, you know, decided to jump in and happy to use any of my professional and personal skills to help us work and support our community. So thank you very much for inviting me. Thank you.
Well, good evening, everybody. Aaron Eisenberg. I live in Deerfield, Illinois. I've lived here for about 15, 16 years or so. Married to Leora. I'm originally actually from Duluth, Minnesota, so that's cold. Duluth, Minnesota, and Frozen Chosen. Actually, that's what we call ourselves. I went to University of Wisconsin, and then met my wife there, Leora, and we dated actually at Owen St. Ruby. We're a camp product, if you will, a camp couple product. And lo and behold, she was a member here at Temple Jeremiah. So I've been affiliated one way or another for about 20 years or so. You know, it's been on and off, but one way or another, you know, Jeremiah's just kind of been a part of my life. So in a weird way, you know, it's interesting listening to people talk about how they picked Jeremiah. I feel kind of like Jeremiah picked me in kind of a weird way. I have 3 great kids. Jonah is 7, my son Ari is 10, and my daughter Jordan is 13. In fact, she's celebrating her bar mitzvah here in a couple weeks. In fact, I just found out today that Cater was walking around today. I'm standing right where there's going to be a purple dance cue, kind of right literally right here, so I feel for that. But Jeremiah obviously is a pretty important part of our lives. I work for Deloitte Consulting. I've been consulting for about 15 years or so, and I do human capital management consulting. So I deal with, I think of it as kind of the people side of business. So I deal with communications and training and leadership, as well as helping people kind of overcome change that comes with new processes and new systems and things like that. And I kind of feel like I solve problems and deal with issues pretty much 24 hours a day, like a lot of folks. So I can certainly bring those skills to the table. In terms of why I'm here, you know, like many of you, I got a mysterious, intriguing letter from the rabbi, so there was a little bit of intrigue. Then I got a call from Mitch, so there was a little bit of obligation and kind of, you know, Jewish guilt. And then, but there was a lot more of, I think, you know, I've received a lot, if you will, from the synagogue over the years, and whether it's attending services or Tot Shabbats or you know, coming for the high holidays or whatnot, and felt like it was a nice inflection point and a time to maybe think about how to give back a little bit more. So,
Hi, I'm Amy Weintraub, and I live in Prospect Heights with my husband Brad and my 2 girls. So Michaela is in 2nd grade and Melissa is in kindergarten. We have belonged to the temple for about a year now. We moved out to the suburbs 2 years ago, and the first year didn't join the temple because I just felt overwhelmed by looking to find the right fit for us and trying to figure out where to go. And because we live in Prospect Heights, which is a little bit further, it's not like there's a temple at every corner. And then when the kids were getting ready to go to school this past year, I felt it was really important for them to have involvement in the temple. And so we had friends that had joined here the year before and said, all right, we'll try it for a year. It's not a huge commitment. do that. So I've been emailing Leah off and on for the past couple months, like, what can I do? How can I get more involved? I work full-time, I have 2 kids, I don't have a lot of time, but I want to do something. So when I got the email from Julie talking about this program, it sounded great to me. From a work perspective, I work for the private bank. I head up the change management group, and so I oversee project managers and business analysts, a lot of enterprise-wide initiatives. And so from a skill set, a lot of it is leading a number of different groups, managing initiatives, and then also collaborating with different people as well. Well, where are you going later? I said it the wrong table. I know. Of course, I thought age-wise, I sat at the right table. My name is Patty Turum. I live with my husband in Northbrook. It's just the 2 of us. We have 2 grown children living in the city. They're off the payroll for now, which is a good thing. I am on my own marketing consulting firm, specializing in innovation. I worked at Kraft Foods for 30 years, and I was there doing a project, so it's good to know people. Let's see, I have been a member at Temple Jeremiah for, I think, 21 years. And the reason we came to Jeremiah is actually my brother-in-law, while he was single, had joined Jeremiah. Years long, probably 34, 35 years ago. And Rabbi Schreiber married us. Because my husband didn't have a rabbi, so we used Rabbi Schreiber. So then when it was time for us to get our kids enrolled in school, we of course just came here. There was no other, we didn't consider anywhere else. We knew we were coming here, and we've been very happy here for 21 years. Why did I take the class? Because I got the letter. So that was kind of easy, and I thought, you don't say no to the rabbi. So I thought I'd kind of dip my toe in the water. I didn't even know it was a class. I didn't really know what I was getting into. So I thought part of the reason, I think I was talking to Phyllis about wanting to, I co-chair the Caring Meals, part of the Caring Community. And some of you are actually on that. I recognize the names. And I was talking to Phyllis about how I really wanted to kind of, I don't want to say drum up business, because it's not like I want people to have problems and be sick, but I was always getting these emails from the social action. They're always doing stuff, and I thought they're like, we're never really made chicken soup, but I don't know if anybody ate it. So I thought that, you know, I was talking to her, and then I got the letter, so I didn't know it was me kind of saying, I wish I could do more. So maybe I don't know if that's what prompted you, but I'm grateful. So I think it's going to be exciting and fun, and my skill set is I'm a trained facilitator. I do brainstorming sessions. I do strategy, innovation. I think I'm creative. I keep telling people I'm creative. So you can either believe that or not believe it. I also do great spreadsheets. I do the budgeting, which we have a lot of financial people, so you don't need that skill set with me. But and I'm very organized. I'm happy to be a leader. I'm happy to be a committee member. Either way, I'll work hard and won't be quiet. And probably cause trouble. That's awesome.
That's what you
So I was going to say, I thought you were awesome before you came in, but I am just like overwhelmed. And give yourselves a hand, because you guys are all interesting, exciting people, and I'm so excited for you to participate in this program. A couple things. So in your packet, you're going to find a roster, and I want to say a few things. First of all, Jennifer and Amy aren't on the list, but we will get that taken care of and redistribute it next week. And Lawrence, I'll drop. He's not participating. And Daniel Malman and David Berzon are participating, but not here tonight. So hopefully you'll get to know each and every one in this cohort really well by the end of the session, and we'll send out a new updated list next week, or if we get it done earlier, we'll email it out so everyone has everyone's contact information. And I also in the book, in the first section, just to point out, we have some reading for you on leadership development and this managing the sacred, that read at your leisure. And then there's also a whole section on contact lists if you need to contact anybody. Our information's on there as well. And we're going to introduce everybody else that's here in a little bit. If you don't mind, we're going to call an audible because we're a little short on time, and skip the break if you need to use the facilities, just please go ahead and do that, but we're gonna keep going. So Rabbi, if you wanna.
We've got like 2 minutes left, is that right?
Well, we don't have as many past presents here as we thought, so you can.
All right, well, I'm not going to. So, do me this favor, because I know that I was very tired sitting. So if you just stand up for a moment, stretch a little bit, walk around your chair, walk around your table, just to get the blood flowing again. If you need to get coffee, you can get some coffee or water. If you want to get one of those delicious cookies, please have one of those delicious cookies. They are awesome. All the calories have been taken out if you're worried about that. So, they're not supposed to, but sometimes they do anyway.
Well, they had they had an early game. They were playing at the lunch. Right before 21-0 in the half. In the fourth quarter, it was 21-19. Everybody was watching the game. It was at the last minute. I don't know if you might have heard about it. It was the last minute field goal. They missed. There's a flag on the play to lay a game by Detroit. They get to kick it again. They win. They go through. They win. Everyone stands up. Yay! Within 15 minutes, everyone's out of my house in their cars driving. That went well. I know. Great. Basketball, the third yesterday he made the team. It was like the icing case. Detroit win. And I forgot part of the reason I'm here is because I was stuck in that last night. I'm like, what is the game? I don't know what I want to do. The email saying that I was involved. What is it after? My name is Five.
I usually have students who can just stand up and that it wasn't really that much. She was admired and she was my friend that she was to sit down. Great kid, healed, and then by the time you was ready, I was like, oh yeah, I mean, you gotta do what you gotta do. Oh yeah, take your time. He arrived at 9:45 and they had a good time. It was a beautiful day.
So as we're kind of getting settled back in, I want to do one brief commercial for an outreach program that we are a part of, and we've been a part of, and it actually ties into the topic of Reform Judaism, a little bit of history, and then specifically about Temple Jeremiah. Temple Jeremiah has always been concerned with relationships outside of Temple Jeremiah as well as within Temple Jeremiah. So we're one of the very early members of the Winnetka Interfaith Council, among many other organizations in our community. And there's a program coming up on November 6th. Some of you may know that Thursdays are my day off. Sometimes I actually get to do that, and it's wonderful. There are very, 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 very few things that I will take on that are on a Thursday. That's not, obviously, a life cycle emergency, a family emergency, but programs that I'm asked to do that I take up because otherwise it eats up everything. This is actually a program that I said, yes, I want to be a part of it. It's a trialogue, or actually quadrilogue, can you say quadrilogue? Quadrilogue, Jewish, Christian, Muslim, Baha'i. Conversation around the stories of Abraham. And I've been asked to be the Jewish representative out of these 4 people, and it's happening under the auspices of the Muslim Community Center, the MEC Outreach Interfaith Committee, and the Winnetka Interfaith Council. The official title is Our Abrahamic Stories Using Scripture to Understand Our Faith Similarities. The other thing that you should know is this is a direct result of last year's Golder Interfaith Lecture, where we brought Dr. Basit Kashul in to talk about scriptural reasoning. And that as a way of connecting people of different faiths, not in trying to work on tolerance, but to really work on understanding and to learn from each other and to find opportunities to dialogue and to build a relationship. So this is a part of that. It's a commercial. It says that you need to RSVP by October 25th. You can still RSVP. There's going to be plenty of room if you're interested. So I'm going to leave these up here for those who wish to be involved. Temple Jeremiah is a Reformed congregation. That's not a surprise to anyone. But it comes as a part of tradition, and I apologize to Joan and to Aline, because some of what I'm doing is a little bit of a repeat of what I did for the last 2 sessions of adult learning. Not so much a repeat, but you'll hear some familiar things coming through. And you'll correct me if I say anything different than what I said on the previous 2 Sundays. Reformed Judaism with a small r begins at the beginning of the Torah. At the very beginning of the Torah, in the story of creation, where God reforms the process of creation. God has a particular plan in mind, and along the way makes adjustments based on what God is seeing in the understanding of the unfolding of creation. And I'll give you a very specific example of this. On day 3, where we start to see vegetation being created, God says that God is going to create Eitz Pri Osepri. Eitz Pri Osepri. So an Eitz Pri, Eitz is tree, Pri is fruits, Eitz Pri, a fruit tree, Osepri, that makes fruit. Okay. So I was looking at this and what's different about an Eitz Pri, a fruit tree, and Osepri, making fruit? Doesn't the fruit tree by definition make fruit? And the commentary is that God's first initial response was to create a tree that was entirely a fruit tree. That is, if it was an apple tree, for instance, that every part of the tree would be apple. Right? So that it would have that taste, it would have that same quality. And then, for whatever reason, based on the way things were unfolding in the environment, in the garden, in the creation, it says, no, it's going to be a tree that makes fruit. Right? So it's not going to be a tree all of one kind. It's going to have this quality or this ability to produce fruit. This is one very small example of how the Torah presents reform with a small r as an ongoing process of evolving, of adapting, of meeting the needs of the moment, and looking at how things can be modified to address the current set of issues, the environment, the culture that needs to be addressed in that same moment. We find these pieces throughout the Torah. The other very well-known example of reform that will be perhaps even a little bit more obvious than this first verse in Genesis comes to us from the book of Numbers, where there is an outline of the laws concerning the inheritance of property. And in a nutshell, what these laws tell us is that property passes from father to son. And the firstborn son gets a double portion, and the next sons get a regular portion, an individual portion. So the laws are outlined, and immediately a case comes forward. The case is the daughters of Zelophehad. Right? Zelophehad is an individual who just passed away. He has 5 daughters. He didn't have any sons. We're actually given the names of the daughters, which is very unusual in Torah and calls our attention because Torah is very much male-centered. We get the names of the men, we don't get the names of the women. If we were to look at the story of Noah, for instance, from last week's Torah portion, we hear about Noah's wife. What's her name? Well, the commentary comes in and gives her a name. The Torah, she's Mrs. Noah, right? I mean, and she, you say pretty prominently, she's the new Eve, right? But we don't know her name. We know Noah's name, and we know the sons' names. We don't know the wife's name. Right? But here in the story of Zelophehad, we get the names of all 5 of the daughters, and they come forward to Moses and they say, Moses, this isn't right. You're talking about the laws of inheritance, which are very specific because land is supposed to remain within the tribe, within the family. And our father died, he didn't have any sons, which means that his land is going to go out of the family. That doesn't make sense. It's contrary to the essence of these laws of inheritance that you've just outlined. And Moses is smart enough to recognize the validity of the argument, but he's not sure what to do because the laws have been outlined. The laws are the laws. So Moses, very smart, turns to God. And God says, the daughters of Zelophehad are right. When we're balancing competing values, we need to adapt these rules so that the value of keeping the land within the family is preserved, so the daughters get to inherit. So here we have within the Torah the example of reform with a small r, where you have the laws, and then you have a contemporary situation that comes forward where the law doesn't work. So what do? You adapt the law. And that's what continues this process that continues all the way through to this moment. Now, the other interesting thing is that the B part of the story is that there's a complaint that's raised about the land going to the women. Because the women who at this point are not married, the daughters are not married, if they marry people from another tribe, then the land is lost to the original family. So the law that was meant to correct the problem creates a new problem. So there's a new tribe, the daughters need to marry somebody from that same tribe, right? They can marry outside of the tribe, but if they do that, the land stays with the tribe, right? She can't take it with her. So it doesn't constrain her from whom she can marry, but it does preserve this interesting dynamic, right? And it sets forward the precedent for us to do the same kind of work because the precedent is set by God, right? It wasn't and built into the instructions. So what reform has done now with a capital R is to bring that process, continue to bring that process forward in a very, very mindful and intentional way. And I say this because all of Judaism is in the process of reform with a small r. All of Judaism. And if anybody tells you any differently, it's not correct. I'm not going to say they're lying to you, they're not lying to you, but it's not correct because continually we're faced with questions of how does Torah respond to a particular situation. And with every moment, we see these changes in our own society, in our own culture, that require a response that isn't readily apparent from the literature that we're given. Certainly not from the Torah. But in order for the Torah to remain a living and breathing document and relevant to our lives, we have to continue to engage in dialogue with it and to figure out what are the precedents, what are the things that Torah teaches us that can help us respond to the particular question or challenge or set of issues that we face. Okay? So that process continues, but the process of reform of the capital R, we actually get a movement or a stream or a denomination of Judaism called Reform, begins in the 19th century. Right? And it begins in Europe. It begins specifically in Germany. And it begins as a consequence or as a side effect, as an outcome of the French Revolution, right? Where the current structures of government and the current understanding of hierarchy of people that are born higher than others gets overturned, and it has an impact on every facet of life in Europe, including Jewish life. And so areas that were considered forbidden or from which Jews were forbidden to engage all of a sudden open up, particularly secular studies, particularly university. And the questions and the methods that are used in the university are then brought to bear on Judaism. So this inquiry, this age of reason, the Enlightenment, all of the tools that come along with that are brought to bear and used within Jewish life. And that's where Reform with a capital R begins. And it begins in very, very subtle ways because the government was very much involved in the business of religion. And so the government placed certain restrictions on what could or could not be done. They had a vested interest in it. And so the change that occurs in Europe is very different than the change that occurs in America. We're going to get to that in a moment. What happens in Europe is that people begin to look at things like the prayer book, which is supposed to be a snapshot of what we believe. Right? So the prayers are supposed to reflect what we believe about ourselves, about our lives, about our relationships with each other and with God. And so in looking at that and saying there are things in the prayer book that we don't believe are true or that we don't expect to happen. And very quickly, two of the best examples are, one, the rebuilding of the temple in Jerusalem and the subsequent ingathering of the exiles. Right? Going back to your story about, the temple was destroyed. Right? Well, yes, and then rebuilt, but not rebuilt in Jerusalem, right? So the idea was that the early reformers felt that the destruction of the temple was not necessarily a consequence of our sins. It wasn't caused by a sin that needs to be corrected, and then once it's corrected, then the temple can be rebuilt and we can reinstitute the sacrificial cult and all of that. But that it was meant to point us outward, to say that the mission of Israel, as defined by the prophets, to be a light to the nations, well, you can't do that if you're all in one place doing one thing. You have to be out among the people, out among the nations. And so one of the results of that is looking at the prayer book and saying, we cannot continue to pray for an ingathering of the exiles, for a return to Zion, because that's not what we want to do. This is our home. Germany is our home. And so we don't to pray for God to bring us back is hypocrisy. It's not what we really want, nor the building of the temple again. And so, as a consequence, not only was the liturgy changed, but the places of worship that these Reformed Jews were building were consciously called temples. Temples, not shuls, not congregations, temples, to reflect that we are continuing that work. Hence Temple Jeremiah. We'll get back to that in a moment. The other place where it gets changed is in the second of the blessings of the Amidah. So the Amidah is a central prayer in every worship service. It begins with the meditation, Adonai Sfatai Tiftach, God, open up my lips, that my mouth may declare your glory, or your praise now. And then we go into the paragraph that talks about the God of our ancestors, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and we've added the matriarchs, Sarah, Rebecca, Rachel, and Leah. Right? That's one change, but that happens later. In the second paragraph, we talk about God's power. And the ultimate expression of God's power was God's ability to give life to the dead. Right? So that there was a prayer about bodily physical resurrection. And because we don't believe that anymore, this is now the 19th century reformers looking at this and saying, we've studied science, this is just, we can't even imagine it. And we push it to the extreme. We start to think about, what does that mean, resurrected? Does it mean resurrected as I died? So if I'm blessed and I live 120 years, am I resurrected as a 120-year-old? I'm not sure I would vote for that. Maybe an 18-year-old, okay, good, you know, and what if my eyes, you know, my eyes are much worse now than they were when I was 18. So starting to ask those questions which push it into the realm of the ridiculous, right? So the language of Mechayeh Metim, which means resurrection of the dead or giving life to the dead, was changed to Mechayeh Hakol, giving life to all. Because that we do believe, God, creator of everything, however we imagine the creation to have happened, God is responsible for all life. Okay, that's good, we can do that. So these are just two small examples of how reform begins, but once it begins, once that door is opened, everything then becomes fair game, right? So we can look at everything in the prayer book and make sure that what we're saying is really what we believe. And then that applies to practice, to ritual. Are we doing this, you know, do we believe that these practices were meant for a particular time and place or for eternity? And what do they mean for us now? What can they mean for us now? So looking at these different practices and understanding that they call out for a response to a contemporary situation. So that's how it begins. I'm doing I feel like I'm dancing on one foot trying to go through all this material, but let me jump to the United States, where the process of reform happens very, very rapidly and much more dramatically than it does in Europe because the government is completely different, right? So the story that I remember about why the Pilgrims first came here in the first place was for religious freedom, right? And there's truth to that. I don't think it was the whole truth. I think there was a lot more to the story, but that was a part of it. And so if that is part of the core story, the story of the origin of the United States, right? That's very, very compelling to the Jewish people who are looking to exactly the same thing, and particularly Jews who are looking to celebrate Judaism in a way that makes sense, in a way that's relevant, in a way that's consistent to this new land, to this golden Medina, this golden land, where there are great opportunities that they could never have imagined in Europe. And so reform takes hold very, 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 in a very strong way, and in a very dramatic way, and some would say in a very radical way. So the earlier expressions of Reform Judaism in this country, we call it today classical reform. Right? Back in the day, they didn't call it classical reform, it was reform. Right? It's like Coke and New Coke and Old Coke, right? But it was reform. So the things like prayer in the vernacular, right, which was agitated for in Germany and gained some ground. Here, right, very little of the service was done in Hebrew. The Shema, and it's strange to say this, but Kaddish, even though Kaddish isn't Hebrew, right? Kaddish is Aramaic, except for the last line, Oseh Shalom B'Ramav, which goes back to the Hebrew again. But those were the two. If anything was done in anything other than English, it was those two pieces. And it's ironic with Kaddish especially because the Kaddish in Aramaic, that was the vernacular of ancient Israel. So the one part of the service that was actually in the vernacular, we Reformed Jews said, no, that one we're going to do in Aramaic. We're not going to do it in English. It would seem very strange for us to do Kaddish in English because it's this sound. That's a story for another day. Right? So classical reform said prayer in vernacular, a sermon in English, musical instruments, predominantly in organ, to again have worship be very much in the style of American Protestant worship. That's what we had in the early Reform movement. Not that we wanted to be Protestants. We didn't want to be Protestants. We wanted Jews. But we also wanted to be Americans first. And this was seen as Americans worship in this way. By the way, Americans worship on Sunday. So the service is on, the main service is on Sunday. It's not a Shabbat service. It's a weekday service. But that's the main service that everybody goes to. And religious school is on Sunday. Because that's when kids in America go to religious school. Right? There were Friday evening worship in some places Saturday morning, mostly Friday evening, but the Friday evening was not the main show. Right? Sunday morning was the morning when the main sermon was delivered and when families gathered at the temple. And that was true in 1959 when Temple Jeremiah first comes to be a congregation. Right? There are two creation stories to Temple Jeremiah. I believe both of them are true. And one creation story has it that there were a group of interfaith families, intermarried couples, intermarried families, who didn't feel comfortable didn't feel like they had a place or a welcome in any of the existing congregations at the time in the North Shore area. And rather than walk away from Judaism, they said, well, we'll create our own place. I think at the same time, there were a group of classical Reform Jews at Lakeside Congregation for Reform Judaism who were very deeply satisfied with the style of worship and with the philosophy of Reform Judaism, except with the anti-Zionist plank. Reform Judaism, again, looking at what it is, are we saying what we believe? Are we that talking about Israel and having Israel play a role in the life of a Jew in America was seen as a compromise of their status as American citizens. That we didn't want to have this charge of dual loyalty, you know, that they're really involved with Israel, they're not really good Americans, they're not. And so Reform Judaism early on in the United States took on this anti-Zionist position. And there was a group of classical Reform Jews at Lakeside that said, we like classical Reform, we like what we're doing, we pray this, but particularly because this is 1959, the state of Israel already is a fact, I felt very uncomfortable with the anti-Zionism of classical Reform. And they said, we should form our own place. Somehow these groups come together and Temple Jeremiah comes into existence. I came here 15 years ago and talked with a lot of folks who were here at the very beginning, and nobody could tell me one story is right or, you know, the true story, or that there's a third story that exists. The other thing that nobody could tell me, and I couldn't find any record of anywhere, and I did this as we were approaching our 50th anniversary, but I also did when I first got here, is why Temple Jeremiah? Why Jeremiah? Why is that the name of this congregation? We are the only Temple Jeremiah in the world. Every once in a while I Google this just to make sure that I'm saying it's true. And we're the only one that comes up, right? And Jeremiah is, you know, he's not a very warm, fuzzy guy. He lived at a terrible time. He wrote the Book of Lamentations, witnessing the destruction of the temple in Jerusalem, the exile of the people. He was a failed prophet. He was sent by God to help make things better, and he couldn't do it. He was despised by his people. He was thrown into jail. It was bad, really bad. And so I'm thinking, right, was that contrary? It's like, you know, this is us, right? Right? But in looking at the group of people that formed Temple Jeremiah, they weren't Jeremiahs. I mean, they weren't these, you know, grumpy, negative people who were just, you know, railing against the world. That wasn't who they were, or who they are, right? So, right? I don't think so. That's not my experience.
That's another story.
That's another story. So when the past presidents talk, they'll give you the real lowdown on who and the personalities of and what. But what this goes to point to is that Temple Jeremiah comes to existence under a very unique set of circumstances. And I think part of the choosing of the name of Jeremiah is part of that. Now, don't get me wrong, Jeremiah did some wonderful things, and he has some wonderful quotations which are throughout the building, by the way. One of the best, any of you who stood under a chuppah and had the 7 wedding blessings chanted at your wedding, whether it was in Hebrew or in English, that comes from Jeremiah. Kol sason v'kol simcha, kol chatan v'kol kala. It's inscribed in the chapel, in the Golden Chapel above the ark, right? The voice of joy, the voice of gladness, the voice of the bride, and the voice of the groom. Those words, right? That's what Jeremiah imagined the Messianic age was going to be like. Like a wedding feast without end, where these great sounds of happiness and joy, what could be better? Like that was, so Jeremiah, he had his moments. He had his moments. And that might have been part of it. Also, and I've never seen this before. It's so amazing. It's so great. In the ark, in the sanctuary, right? When we open the ark, there's a Hebrew inscription, right? A quotation from the prophet Jeremiah. And I've never seen this in any inscription. I defy any of you to point to any other place where this exists, because I've looked and I've asked. And I'd be very interested to see if it exists anywhere else, where the Hebrew quotation has words removed and a ... put in. Right? So we see this in English from time to time. I've never seen it in an inscription, whether it's engraved or whether it's placed within the sanctuary on the frontispiece of a synagogue. I've never, ever seen it. Right? But it says the inscription reads, in English it would read, "Seek the peace of the people among whom you live, ... for by their peace shall you have peace." Right? So this is a beautiful idea, right? This is outreach. This is, tikkun olam. This is making sure that, because if you work for the justice, for the shalom, for the wholeness of the people among whom you're living, it's going to wash onto you as well. Right? Enlightened self-interest. This is wonderful, right? Go out, fix the world, and when you fix the world, you're going to fix the world for you too, not just for everyone else. Right? What's the ... The little piece about God exiling you to that place. Right? So we took out that part because it didn't like it so much. This is part of our punishment that we're not going to let miserable around you, but when you're there, make the best of it, and ultimately come back. No, we took that part out. But to the credit of the folks who were thinking about this, they wanted to make sure, even though it's in Hebrew, and many people probably couldn't just spontaneously translate it or wouldn't take the time to look it up, they wanted to be honest, we're going to take that part out, and we're going to quote the part that we really think is meaningful and speaks to us. And again, speaks to this creation of this congregation and both the fire and the thought that went into the creation of Temple of Jeremiah, and that continues to inform who we are even to this day, the decisions we made, and what brought all of you to a person, what brought all of you to be members of this wonderful congregation. That is a very short piece. There is so much more, and there will be more, because one of the things that I learned from the 2 Sundays where I began teaching about Reform Judaism, the history of Reform Judaism in general, and then specifically American Reform, and then specifically about Temple Jeremiah, is that there's a lot more to talk about. And so we'll continue to have this unfold. There'll be lots of opportunities to continue talking and learning about this, but I wanted to try a little bit to be sensitive to my time. I still have a little extra time that I did, so. All right, so thank you very much. Thank you again for being here. A reminder, if you want to take a flyer about the program November 6th, it's right there.
So, that was wonderful, thank you. So we're going to do the past presidents little panel session. Just so you know, in your books, you can read later, there's information on the history of Jeremiah and a listing of all the past presidents. Not everyone could be here today. Some people are traveling. Some people are out of town and traveling. And I don't know, I think we can just do it here at the table, maybe.
So I think we should start in the order of who came first, out of respect. So we'll let Joe pretty much behind at this point, so we're going to have to, but hopefully everybody will get out of this some sense of pattern in what you see, and yet some changes as well over the period of time that you've been president.
Thank you very much.
Give a little background on yourself as well.
Okay. I'm Joan Golder. I live in Winnetka. Have lived there since 1970. My children went to New Trier. I have 3 children. I have 8 grandchildren, 5 of whom went through confirmation here at Jeremiah. My late husband was a president of Jeremiah. I was the first woman president of Jeremiah, which, however, caused some consternation within the congregation. Not the members of the board, excuse me, who were very cooperative, and certainly not the rabbi, excuse me. But the nominating committee chose to surround me with males who were kind of a cushion. At any rate, it worked. They discovered that the first female would not destroy the temple. My family and I have been members for about 50 years, 50 years. Not quite founding, but almost founding. I think the one thing which was the most traumatic in my presidency was having to dismiss a cantor. And I know that anyone who has ever fired anybody else knows what the problem is. But the firing of the cantor was the most difficult thing. Beyond that, I found that people did learn that that the female president would cooperate with them. It was an easier time. It was a time when, in lots of years, we needed money here at Jeremiah. And people really tried to be as generous as they could. Our congregation numbered about 250. So it was a great deal smaller than it is today. I congratulate you all for coming, and I'm so glad to see you all wanting to be leaders. You're leaders already, and welcome.
John, what years were you president?
I was president 1982 to 1985. Oh, and my son, did I mention? My son was on. You probably all know the Golder from my son, who was president most recently.
I'm going to read David's later quote.
So,
Ron,
I think nobody next. There were a couple in between.
My name is Ron Sandler. I was president from 85 to 87. I don't I'm going to talk loud. I forget to hold it near my mouth, that's why. I'm basically a retired patent lawyer. We grew up in Winnetka with our family. My wife and I have been members here for 44 years. Our children were confirmed here. I had 3 grandsons that were bar mitzvah here, so we have a long affiliation with the congregation. I started out being honored to ask to work on the House Committee. I didn't know what that was at the time because we didn't have a building. Services were held at New Trier East Congregation. That's where our first introduction to high holidays were. The work on the House Committee, the second year that we had this building, I was here every Sunday with a lawnmower, mowing what was a very meager lawn. The problems that I had as president, I don't wish on anybody. And you can tell from my administration by where my picture is placed as closest to the men's room. Be that as it may, I had 3 issues to contend with. The first was, it was the first time Temple Jeremiah had a rabbi that went on a sabbatical. So we had no rabbi for basically about 10 months, Joe, roughly. And it was not easy keeping everyone's attention, getting people to come to services on Friday night, getting people to remain active and involved. Problems all presidents, past and current, face are the same: fundraising, membership, keeping people involved in the Temple community. The 2 other problems, one was a problem, one was a blessing. Like Joan, I also had to terminate the employment of a cantor. So we had a streak of 2 cantors that were an issue for the congregation. I was fortunate enough, I actually got Amy her first job with the Temple at religious school, and was able to then ultimately hire her as our cantor, so that was something I'm very proud of. That's about it. Thank you.
Were you going to mention Jackie, or you?
Well, yeah, I can. That's.
You said you had some ideas.
Well, not all time on a Temple board is easy, as you will learn as you go through it. I think you've heard Joan and her problems. You've heard a couple that I had. Jackie Slavic was a president after I was. Our former rabbi had some issues. There was when Joan terminated one of the cantors, there was a group of congregants who were very enamored of that cantor, who then started to take issue with the rabbi when he returned from the sabbatical. Many of them were getting very vocal. Jackie was concerned that this could lead to a potential split in the congregation. She asked me to chair a committee, which I did, even though I was then out a couple of years. And I will tell you, the first thing I said, it was a group of very vocal people, and the very first thing I said to them was, is it your intention that the rabbi be terminated as the rabbi of this congregation? Because if it's not, I will listen to your issues, and we'll try and work through them. And none of them said he should be terminated. I think by causing just went away. The issues didn't go away. I listened to the issues, ultimately had a meeting with the rabbi. I think Fern was present. About 8 people from this committee were present. I will only tell you that it was not a pleasant meeting and that things were constructively done at the conclusion of the meeting. And I will also tell you this, Bob Schreiman and his wife at the time and my wife and I were very close. We lived not far apart when Bob said to me at the conclusion of that meeting outside of the presence of everyone, "You were a son of a bitch tonight." So these are not always pleasant things that come with serving on a temple board, but things that you have to do in order to keep a congregation together. Thank you.
It's a great place.
Hi there. My name's Herb Horn. I was Temple president from June of 92 to May of 95. I followed Jackie Slavic, who threw her keys at me during my inauguration. But that's the past. We have been members at Temple Jeremiah for 34 years. And I'm still on some committees. I'm on the Spiritual Life Committee. My job is to maintain classical Reform Judaism as much as we can here. My other activity is I'm on the adult choir, and then I've been called upon from time to time for various functions here at Temple, and I'm more than happy to do it. I have 2 children. They're grown adults, 2 grandchildren. They were both bar and bat mitzvah here as well as confirmed. And they have nothing but wonderful memories of Temple Jeremiah as voiced by this new crew, some not so new crew, that all of the things that everybody said today has been true of Temple Jeremiah from the day one we joined. So I told you I followed Jackie. I joined the board of directors in 1982. Served on a lot of committees. Fundraising was one of them. We were always doing fundraising back in those days. Then I was asked by Ron to serve on the executive board as financial secretary, which I accepted that position, and that was to interview families requesting dues relief. There was only one person in the congregation that did that. That was the financial secretary, and also to attempt to collect congregants that were in arrears on their dues. It was a lovely job. I served on a finance committee throughout the executive board tenure until I was Jackie's executive vice president, and then became president when Jackie decided that she was done in 2 years. So that's how it happened. I didn't plan it that way, it just sort of happens. And I think once you get involved, things sort of happen in that way. I had no experience for much in the way of leadership. I was a businessman. I had a small business to run. I didn't have very many employees. It wasn't anything grand or big, heavy-hitting job or anything. The congregation was in a growth mode. We were 450 families when I joined. We were 600 when I finished my presidency. Some wonderful things happened during my presidency. The first thing was Jonas Stan Golder decided to donate the Golder Chapel to our temple. But the way they did it was so classic and so wonderful. They came to the board of directors. They asked the board of directors for their permission if they wouldn't mind. We granted permission, of course. And during the groundbreaking ceremony, our temple administrator had arranged a date for groundbreaking, and I was just the new president at that time, and I was going to be out of town. And I said to the temple administrator, well, I'm going to be out of town, we should really change the date. She said, well, I don't really want to. Stan and Joan are available that day. And she said, if you want something changed, you probably are going to have to call Stan and Joan. Well, knowing Stan and Joan are donating this to Temple, and I was extremely nervous about this, I went ahead and did it. And as gracious as the Golders are, they said, well, of course the president has to be at the groundbreaking ceremony. But my point in saying that is that when you're in a position of responsibility, just like Ron said he was at that time too, you have to take the leadership role. You have to grab the bull by the horns. You have to step up and do your part. And I think that was one of my first lessons in leadership that I gained from being president of Temple Jeremiah. There were other things that went on, and due to lack of time, I wrote some things, but I'm not going to go into those. One of the most important things I think that we did is Rabbi Schreiben came to me. He said, Amy was our song director at that time, not a cantor. And he said, Amy would like to go on a sabbatical to study for her cantorial certification before she was ordained. And so I went to the board of directors. We granted Amy a 6-month sabbatical, and she went and studied for cantorial, and you know the rest. Amy was the most wonderful cantor in our temple. We were done firing cantors at that time. Thank God, we had gone through a whole bunch, and this was our winner. And after Amy retired, I really think we got another winner here. So I think we're going to do well. I did a lot of other things. I just jumped in all the time. I was here all the time. We had a terrible traffic problem at Temple Jeremiah. I directed traffic during Sunday school and off hours. And in fact, I was actually flipped off by a congregant because I made her stop to let some people go through, and she thought she should go first. And so, you know, the president gets all kinds of stuff. He really does. I think, in summary, my single best experience for preparing me for future leadership roles in my life was to be involved in Temple Jeremiah. It taught me that you can lead, and you can lead by example. You don't lead because you have the authority to lead, but you lead by example. You look at everybody, you try to include everybody, you try to understand what all of the issues are, and then the other word is compromise. And I think that that makes the best leadership that you can have. Thank you very much.
Folks, good evening. Many of you I already know, and I just want to echo the sentiment, how pleased, certainly we all are, the past presidents and the rabbi, to have such an outstanding group of participants here this evening. Did you want to do her first?
Well, she's in order. She only has 2 paragraphs.
Well, that's okay. Sit down. It was hard enough for me to stand up. I'm going to do this gently. Wait a minute. Listen, I'm so thrilled that Phil is here as a cardiologist, just to help the people present.
Just to keep in order, and because Diana and Mitch were a great team, so Diana couldn't be here tonight, but she's one of our partners in crime in putting this program together. So I just wanted to read what she wrote. My 3-year term began with a whirlwind of activity. The board began to seriously undertake the study of building improvement in space. The prior board had done some studies of the aging facility, and it was determined that the complete study was needed. Of course, that also required financial feasibility study in order to pay for the improvements. My first high holiday, President's State of the Congregation, included an announcement that we would begin a capital campaign. Always very welcomed by the congregation. The first in the history of the congregation since the facility was built. This all coincided with Rabbi Schreibman announcing his intention to retire. Over the next 2 years, committees were formed for the Rabbi Search Committee, which needed to get into action, and then the time frame was accelerated. We ended up having a search for an assistant rabbi as well. Needless to say, it was a very busy 3 years, but a great 3 years. I was blessed with an amazing committee chairs and committee persons, dedicated, talented, and committed. The rest of all of our efforts we still benefit from today. A renowned temple and an acclaimed leader in a truly beautiful space. I feel the experience enabled me to truly claim Jeremiah and its members and leaders, my family. You were Diana's, exactly.
She was an outstanding president, and I'll tell you, we had 6 years, 3 years when she was president, 3 years when I was president, of just a wonderful team. So I was president number 17, years 2001 to 2004, and while yes, we've all had challenges, I left the office probably screaming and kicking that I did not want to leave. I would have stayed on. I probably would have been divorced, as Gary knows, but this was the most amazing experience that you can ever ask for to serve as president of Temple. Not in terms of the business kinds of things and these issues that come up, but it was to get to know the people. And it was a highlight of the 3 years, and a highlight for me yet when I come into the temple every week, and I'm still here quite a bit. Ron mentioned, or her mentioned, financial secretary. That was one of the first positions I got rid of when I was president, to just put an undue burden on a congregant to go out and ask other congregants for money, or to question how much they were or were not willing to pay. We had some interesting times when I took over from Diana. She started with Paul Cohen, and Paul and I became very close over 3 years. The nicest tribute that he made when I left is that I was his Caleb to his Joshua, because we did truly march through some very interesting times. Not only were we getting a new rabbi acclimated, we had a senior rabbi of 25 years who became our first emeritus rabbi, who was present. Rabbi Tarshish of blessed memory left and was not around. Rabbi Schreibman was here. We had to get rid of an associate rabbi, hire a new assistant rabbi. That capital campaign that Diana mentioned, I chaired. We raised quite a bit of money, much more than they anticipated, but it left us with some challenges, and I
pretty much behind at this point, so we're going to have to, but hopefully everybody will get out of this some sense of pattern in what you see, and yet some changes as well over the period of time that you've been president.
Thank you very much.
Give a little background on yourself as well.
Okay. I'm Joan Golder. I live in Winnetka. I've lived there since 1970. My children went to New Trier. I have 3 children. I have 8 grandchildren, 5 of whom went through confirmation here at Jeremiah. My late husband was the president of Jeremiah. I was the first woman president of Jeremiah, which, however, caused some consternation within the congregation. Not the members of the board, excuse me, who were very cooperative, and certainly not the rabbi, excuse me. But the nominating committee chose to surround me with males who were kind of a cushion. At any rate, it worked. They discovered that the first female would not destroy the temple. My family and I have been members for about 50 years, 50 years. Not quite founding, but almost founding. I think the one thing which was the most traumatic in my presidency was having to dismiss a cantor. And I know that anyone who has ever fired anybody else knows what the problem is. but the firing of the cantor was the most difficult thing. Beyond that, I found that people did learn that that the female president would cooperate with them. It was an easier time. It was a time when, in lots of years, we needed money here at Jeremiah. And people really tried to be as generous as they could. Our congregation numbered about 250. So it was a great deal smaller than it is today. I congratulate you all for coming, and I'm so glad to see you all wanting to be leaders. You're leaders already, and welcome.
John, what years were you president?
I was president 1982 to 1985. Oh, and my son, did I mention? My son was on. You probably all know the Golder from my son, who was president most recently.
I'm going to read David's later quote.
So,
Ron,
I think somebody next.
My name is Ron Sandler. I was president from 85 to 87. I don't feel my microphone. I talk loud. I forget to hold it near my mouth, that's why. I'm basically a retired patent lawyer. We grew up in Winnetka with our family. My wife and I have been members here for 44 years. Our children were confirmed here. I had 3 grandsons that were bar mitzvah here, so we have a long affiliation with the congregation. I started out being honored to ask to work on the House Committee. I didn't know what that was at the time because we didn't have a building. Services were held at New Trier East Congregation. That's where our first introduction to high holidays were. The work on the House Committee, the second year that we had this building, I was here every Sunday with a lawnmower, mowing what was a very meager lawn. The problems that I had as president, I don't wish on anybody. And you can tell from my administration by where my picture is placed is closest to the men's room. Be that as it may, I had 3 issues to contend with. The first was, it was the first time Temple Jeremiah had a rabbi that went on a sabbatical. So we had no rabbi for basically about 10 months, Joe, roughly. And it was not easy keeping everyone's attention, getting people to come to services on Friday night, getting people to remain active and involved. Problems all presidents, past and current, face are the same: fundraising, membership, keeping people involved in the Temple community. The 2 other problems, one was a problem, one was a blessing. Like Joan, I also had to terminate the employment of a cantor. So we had a streak of 2 cantors that were an issue for the congregation. I was fortunate enough, I actually got Amy her first job with the Temple at religious school, and was able to then ultimately hire her as our cantor, so that was something I'm very proud of. That's about it. Thank you.
Were you going to mention Jackie, or you?
Well, yeah, I can, that's.
You said you had some ideas.
Well, not all time on a Temple board is easy, as you will learn as you go through it. I think you've heard Joan and her problems. You've heard a couple that I had. Jackie Slavic was a president after I was. Our former rabbi had some issues. There was when Joan terminated one of the cantors, there was a group of congregants who were very enamored of that cantor, who then started to take issue with the rabbi when he returned from the sabbatical. Many of them were getting very vocal. Jackie was concerned that this could lead to a potential split in the congregation. She asked me to chair a committee, which I did, even though I was then out a couple of years. And I will tell you, the first thing I said, it was a group of very vocal people, and the very first thing I said to them was, is it your intention that the rabbi be terminated as the rabbi of this congregation? Because if it's not, I will listen to your issues, and we'll try and work through them. And none of them said he should be terminated. I think The issues didn't go away. I listened to the issues, ultimately had a meeting with the rabbi. I think Fern was present. About 8 people from this committee were present. I will only tell you that it was not a pleasant meeting and that things were constructively done at the conclusion of the meeting. And I will also tell you this, Bob Schreiman and his wife at the time, and my wife and I were very close. We lived not far apart when Bob said to me at the conclusion of that meeting, outside of the presence of everyone, "You were a son of a bitch tonight." So these are not always pleasant things that come with serving on a temple board, but things that you have to do in order to keep a congregation together. Thank you.
It's a great place.
Hi there. My name's Herb Horn. I was Temple president from June of 92 to May of 95. I followed Jackie Slavic, who threw her keys at me during my inauguration. But that's the past. We have been members at Temple Jeremiah for 34 years. And I'm still on some committees. I'm on the Spiritual Life Committee. My job is to maintain classical Reform Judaism as much as we can here. My other activity is I'm on the adult choir, and then I've been called upon from time to time for various functions here at Temple, and I'm more than happy to do it. I have 2 children. They're grown adults, 2 grandchildren. They were both bar and bat mitzvah here, as well as confirmed. And they have nothing but wonderful memories of Temple Jeremiah, as voiced by this new crew, some not so new crew, that all of the things that everybody said today has been true of Temple Jeremiah from the day one we joined. So I told you I followed Jackie. I joined the board of directors in 1982. Served on a lot of committees. Fundraising was one of them. We were always doing fundraising back in those days. Then I was asked by Ron to serve on the executive board as financial secretary, which I accepted that position, and that was to interview families requesting dues relief. There was only one person in the congregation that did that. That was the financial secretary, and also to attempt to collect congregants that were in arrears on their dues. It was a lovely job. I've served on a finance committee throughout the executive board tenure until I was Jackie's executive vice president, and then became president when Jackie decided that she was done in 2 years. So that's how it happened. I didn't plan it that way. It just sort of happens. And I think once you get involved, things sort of happen in that way. I had no experience for much in the way of leadership. I was a businessman. I had a small business to run. I didn't have very many employees. It wasn't anything grand or big, heavy-hitting job or anything. The congregation was in a growth mode. We were 450 families when I joined. We were 600 when I finished my presidency. Some wonderful things happened during my presidency. The first thing was Jonas Stan Golder decided to donate the Golder Chapel to our temple. But the way they did it was so classic and so wonderful. They came to the board of directors. They asked the board of directors for their permission if they wouldn't mind. We granted permission, of course. And during the groundbreaking ceremony, our temple administrator had arranged a date for groundbreaking, and I was just the new president at that time. And I was going to be out of town. And I said to the temple administrator, well, I'm going to be out of town. We should really change the date. She said, well, I don't really want to. Stan and Joan are available that day. And she said, if you want something changed, you probably are going to have to call Stan and Joan. Well, knowing Stan and Joan are donating this to Temple, and I was extremely nervous about this, I went ahead and did it. And as gracious as the Golders are, they said, well, of course the president has to be at the groundbreaking ceremony. But my point in saying that is that when you're in a position of responsibility, just like Ron said he was at that time too, you have to take the leadership role. You have to grab the bull by the horns. You have to step up and do your part. And I think that was one of my first lessons in leadership that I gained from being president of Temple Jeremiah. There were other things that went on, and due to lack of time, I wrote some things, but I'm not going to go into those. One of the most important things I think that we did is Rabbi Schreiben came to me. He said, Amy was our song director at that time, not a cantor. And he said, Amy would like to go on a sabbatical to study for her cantorial certification before she was ordained. And so I went to the board of directors. We granted Amy a 6-month sabbatical, and she went and studied for cantorial, and you know the rest. Amy was the most wonderful cantor in our temple. We were done firing cantors at that time. Thank God, we'd gone through a whole bunch, and this was our winner. And after Amy retired, I really think we got another winner here. So I think we're going to do well. I did a lot of other things. I just jumped in all the time. I was here all the time. We had a terrible traffic problem at Temple Jeremiah. I directed traffic during Sunday school and off hours. And in fact, I was actually flipped off by a congregant because I made her stop to let some people go through, and she thought she should go first. And so, you know, the president gets all kinds of stuff. He really does. I think, in summary, my single best experience for preparing me for future leadership roles in my life was to be involved in Temple Jeremiah. It taught me that you can lead, and you can lead by example. You don't lead because you have the authority to lead, but you lead by example. You look at everybody, you try to include everybody, you try to understand what all of the issues are, and then the other word is compromise. And I think that that makes the best leadership that you can have. Thank you very much.
Folks, good evening. Many of you I already know, and I just want to echo the sentiment, how pleased, certainly we all are, the past presidents and the rabbi, to have such an outstanding group of participants here this evening. Did you want to do her first?
Well, she's in order. She only has 2 paragraphs.
Well, that's okay. Sit down. It was hard enough for me to stand up. I'm going to do this gently. Wait a minute. Listen, I'm so thrilled that Phil is here as an cardiologist, just to help the people present.
Just to keep in order, and because Diana and Mitch were a great team, so Diana couldn't be here tonight, but she's one of our partners in crime in putting this program together. So I just wanted to read what she wrote. My 3-year term began with a whirlwind of activity. The board began to seriously undertake the study of building improvement in space. The prior board had done some studies of the aging facility, and it was determined that the complete study was needed. Of course, that also required financial feasibility study in order to pay for the improvements. My first high holiday, President's State of the Congregation, included an announcement that we would begin a capital campaign. Always very welcomed by the congregation. The first in the history of the congregation since the facility was built. This all coincided with Rabbi Schreibman announcing his intention to retire. Over the next 2 years, committees were formed for the Rabbi Search Committee, which needed to get into action, and then the time frame was accelerated. We ended up having a search for an assistant rabbi as well. Needless to say, it was a very busy 3 years, but a great 3 years. I was blessed with an amazing committee chairs and committee persons, dedicated, talented, and committed. The rest of all of our efforts we still benefit from today. A renowned temple, an acclaimed leader, and a truly beautiful space. I feel the experience enabled me to truly claim Jeremiah and its members and leaders, my family. You were Diana's, exactly.
She was an outstanding president, and I'll tell you, we had 6 years, 3 years when she was president, 3 years when I was president, of just a wonderful team. So I was president number 17, years 2001 to 2004, and while yes, we've all had challenges, I left the office probably screaming and kicking that I did not want to leave. I would have stayed on. I probably would have been divorced, as Barry knows, but this was the most amazing experience that you can ever ask for to serve as president of Temple. Not in terms of the business kinds of things and these issues that come up, but it was to get to know the people. And it was a highlight of the 3 years, and a highlight for me yet when I come into the temple every week, and I'm still here quite a bit. Ron mentioned, or her mentioned, financial secretary. That was one of the first positions I got rid of when I was president, to just put an undue burden on a congregant to go out and ask other congregants for money, or to question how much they were or were not willing to pay. We had some interesting times when I took over from Diana. She started with Paul Cohen, and Paul and I became very close over 3 years. The nicest tribute that he made when I left is that I was his Caleb to his Joshua, because we did truly march through some very interesting times. Not only were we getting a new rabbi acclimated, we had a senior rabbi of 25 years who became our first emeritus rabbi, who was present. Rabbi Tarshish of blessed memory left and was not around. Rabbi Schreibman was here. We had to get rid of an associate rabbi, hire a new assistant rabbi. That capital campaign that Diana mentioned, I chaired. We raised quite a bit of money, much more than they anticipated, but it left us then with some challenges and our residents when we made major changes. And this building was truly gutted. Those of you who were not here, this place was really turned completely around during that time period. It left us with some very big challenges. Namely, when you ask people for money, people feel that they've really had enough. Some people have had enough of the temple, and they've had all the Judaism that they can tolerate, and it was time to move on. So our population went from the upper 700s to the mid 600s, to the low 600s, and it leveled. And that brought along with a certain amount of financial issues. We were always able to meet all of our obligations, always able to meet our membership dues in the union, but it became some very challenging times. In spite of that, it was the greatest experience that you could ever ask for, and what we have today is just the most outstanding facility and the most outstanding community with the most outstanding senior staff of anywhere in this metropolitan area. 38 years a member, our affiliation is really with Jeremiah, 45 years. Rabbi Tarshish, of blessed memory, married Valerie and I. One of those rabbis who said, no, I don't want you because your wife isn't Jewish. We want you. And it was that welcoming that Valerie, a couple years later, converted, and 7 years later said when it was time to look, this was the place that we wanted to be. I've often said that Rabbi Tarshish and it's been the philosophy of the other rabbis, have done more for Judaism than all the Hasids around. It really embraced this welcoming atmosphere. Started off as a university professor, have been a consultant, been a tour operator, do the Israel tours here, and to add a plug for that November 6th meeting, I'm president of Winnetka Interfaith Council. It's going to be an outstanding program. Thank you.
So we had Howard is out of town, and then David Golder wrote this. As I think back to the period of my presidency, 2007 to 2010, the most obvious of challenges was the impact of the worst period of the Great Recession. During that period, the Jeremiah community lost significant congregant families that had to prioritize the synagogue out of their more pressing life issues. The number of families that required our assistance with their annual financial commitment easily doubled in 1 year, and that impact still changes the model of Temple Jeremiah's operating budget. The community responded with strength and unity. While no families were ever turned away from Temple Jeremiah for financial reasons, we had to reassess our financial priorities and look toward internal efficiencies that were potentially stressful when compared to our other normal operations. The period required great leadership on the part of our professional staff and board of directors. The hard decisions required extra care and leadership engagement in the communications to the Jeremiah community. In the end, by applying thoughtful business management principles and prioritizing of discretionary expenditures, while always looking towards our mission, we protected all of our employees' jobs and had only modest impact on the mission-critical services that the temple provides to our community. In the midst of this financial stress, there were many community successes. We concluded our capital campaign and made progress on enhancing the sanctuary space, celebrating our 50th anniversary as a congregation, welcomed new professionals to our staff, embraced record numbers of B'nai Mitzvah into our community, and wrote our own Torah scroll. It was an honor to serve the community, and I always appreciate the thoughtful partnership we maintained with our professional and volunteer leadership. And then there's me. So I was David's exec VP. We joined the temple in 1996, I believe. Yeah, 96. And I immediately got involved in Sisterhood, and then I was first on the board in 1998 as Sisterhood president. And once I was on the board, Diana was president at the time, got me involved in the facility project, which Mitch mentioned. And kind of stayed on the board ever since. So I was on the board for about 16 years. And I just have to echo Mitch, it's been the best experience of my life. Challenging at times, hardworking, lots of hours put in, but really, really rewarding. And like a lot of you said here today, what you put in is what you get out. So I really feel like I put in a lot, but I also got out a lot. And that's what I really loved about being on the board, is that it wasn't just a one-way street. I learned as much about consensus building, working in groups, beefing up my financial knowledge of reading reports and budgeting, that I can use in my professional life as the same as what I brought from my professional life to the board. So it truly is a two-way street. Some of the challenges that I faced during my presidency, similar to some others, was staffing. Specifically, we're at an executive director search. We were just, my first day on the job was negotiating Rabbi Siegel's contract. That was interesting. And then staffing the front office, we were having lots of turnover. And it was really hard to get any kind of consistency. And how we looked to our members was very important. Were we serving them well? So that was a real struggle in trying to get some organization to the front office, helping them to develop processes and procedures. And I just can't say enough how wonderful Danny has been here. He's just completely changed the way we operate. Also, financial budgeting and reporting issues was a real challenge back then. We've since put some processes in place and are more accurate. And most of all, David mentioned, and it continued from his president, continued on from mine, was membership. We just had so many people on the board, on our roster that really weren't members. We really had about 640 members at the time, but we're reporting way many more. So really just cleaning all that up, and the membership really grew over that time from 640 to I think 850, around there when while I was president. So membership was a huge, huge focus, recruiting and retaining, so activities on both sides, which continues today. And the other thing that we did really focused on was long-range planning. We did a lot of strategy planning, both in David's and continuing in my presidency, and implementing that long-range plan and really planning out a vision for the temple and where we want to go. That's probably it, I think. It was just a wonderful experience, and thrilled to still be active in the temple.
Can I just add a couple things, because it's actually consistent. Give me a minute.
Sorry. The rabbi talked about the change in Reform Judaism and how we reform. Temple Jeremiah has, over the years, especially in the 44 years since I've been a member, transitioned significantly. And Joan, I know, will remember this. When I joined, there was virtually no Hebrew other than the two prayers you mentioned. Nobody wore a yarmulke, nobody wore a talit. There was no bar mitzvah, bar bat mitzvah. There were many on the board vigorously opposed to those types of activities. When we finally adopted them, they didn't want them published in the covenant. They didn't want people to be made aware of it because they thought we were encouraging it. The temple has come a long, long way. And one thing that has been constant throughout the time I've been here is that regardless of these issues, it has always been a warm and welcoming congregation. And from the comments you have all made tonight, I think that tradition has continued. And I just want to say thank you for your attendance here tonight, because it makes me feel good. And thank you.
So I'm in the kind of the middle of my second year as president of the congregation. I went on the board during Herb's tenure as president. I want to make one correction, I think, in what Julie had to say, that if you left when they were 850, we've added 100 members since you left as president. I don't think that can be right, because we're at about 950 families right now. Someplace in between yours and mine, we added a whole lot more members. Some of the themes that you hear, Herb talked about the fact that he was directing traffic. Last weekend I was in the lot as well, telling drivers not to drop their kids off in the north lot. So some of those things just don't change between one period of time as acting as president and the other. But obviously the things that have marked my tenure were the departure of Amy after her 28 years as a phenomenal voice and person, not departure but retirement, since she is still our emeritus. And the addition, the search for a replacement for Amy, as well as the addition of Adam and the inclusion of Adam in our services since he's come here, obviously had a big effect on my presidency. In terms of the challenges that I'm seeing and the ones that we face as a congregation today, we continue to be a place that has a significant number of B'nai Mitzvah a year, 50 to 75, even 80 in a year. That's a wonderful thing because it tends to bring in new members, but finding a way to address the various needs of all those B'nai Mitzvah families and make it meaningful, as well as continuing to retain those members. One of the biggest challenges that we face is that every year, while we add about 50 new members, some years more, we also lose 45 to 50 members a year, and that's a real challenge. Making that connection with our congregants to hold on to them so that we don't need to continue to replace them, so that we have continuity within our congregational family is and continues to be probably the biggest challenge that I see continuing for us as we go forward. The other thing that continues to be a challenge for us is that what David Golder saw when the number of people who went on some form of dues relief doubled during his term. We're now at about 30% of our congregation who are in one way, shape, or form or another in some form of dues relief. While that doesn't fortunately challenge us financially, it does force us to continue to fundraise. It forces us to look at our budget carefully. It forces us to find ways to make up for those members who we want to have as part of an inclusive community, but on the other hand aren't able to pay their full amount, both in terms of allowing them and recognizing, be respectful of those who are in need, but also making sure that people aren't taking advantage of us, because we don't want to be a place where we're questioning our members and what they're capable of doing, but also don't want them to look at us as a place where, you know, if it's not a big priority, well, we can belong here, and other people who feel more connected will step up and carry the load for us. So that's a challenge that the financial committee is facing, and we're, in fact, tomorrow night, I'll be here again tomorrow night, to sit and talk and review that, what our policies are towards membership and dues models, which is something that we're going to need to look at going forward. Part of that is our congregation, part of that is just a situation within the general Jewish community as a whole, not just the Reform community, but nationwide, the issue of members and their commitment to congregations and their financial commitments, and whether kids today, millennials today are going to join congregations. We're fortunate that we have a solid membership. Whether there's a trend nationwide that will eventually hit the Midwest is a question that we need to look at, and are there different dues models that will make it easier for us to attract members and hold on to them. Those are issues that our financial committee needs to and is looking at addressing. So the good news is as I'm not sure who it was, I think Mitch said, we've always had a strong partnership with our clergy. That continues at the congregation. We view the management of the organization as a partnership, a true partnership between those of us who are in roles of leadership and the clergy and employees, and as well the rest of the congregation. We're fortunate in that regard because as I sit in meetings, attend national conventions and other things involving congregations nationwide, I know how strong we really are in terms of that partnership, in terms of the congregation. When I hear what other congregations are going through in that regard, and we just don't have those kind of political issues here at all. It's a real well-run, well-respected board. People respect each other. We don't have a lot, I hope, at least that I've seen, of meetings in the parking lot after board meetings or discussions or complaints about how each other treats each other or how we feel about our clergy. So those are all parts of what I'm seeing as a president today. I think maybe I will leave it at that. I was trying to make sure that I found some of the common themes in both what all of the past presidents have seen as well as what we're seeing today.
Can we do the topic real quick so we have something in your homework?
Yeah.
So we're just summarizing kind of what you heard. What we're going to do is put a list of topics, just kind of throw out ideas, either through what we've said or you've heard tonight, or just ones that you've thought of on your own. And then next session, we're going to do something with those topics. So somebody who wants to start throwing out maybe issues facing congregations that you've heard tonight that you think are meaningful topics for discussion at a later date.
Membership, recruitment, and retention.
Dues.
Is that? And I would say membership recruitment is one and retention is a second.
I think retention is really key.
Membership dues.
Dues. Politics in the national sense or in a local sense?
Simple organizational politics.
Religious issues, does anybody see religious issues in particular? Worship, form of worship?
Fighting anti-Semitism.
Anti-Semitism?
I think the diversity of backgrounds, you know, diversity of religious backgrounds and in the congregation is powerful.
Diversity of membership, is that true?
I would have fulfilling purpose for our congregants, so we have a social action connection, but what other connections do we have that make us as a congregation something that makes people want to engage?
Maybe bigger than dues, it's really financial stability, of which dues contributes.
Engaging younger people, and I don't mean 20, I'm talking about the
Kids.
9, 10, 11, 12, 13.
Youth engagement?
Yes.
I'm going to add in creating a culture of giving, since that was part of my Rosh Hashanah address and part of the annual fund.
It's all the same issue.
I think maybe character building, helping kids, the young kids turn into help them develop dimensions.
Stewardship.
Stewardship. In terms of leadership, in terms of
Leadership, caring what wants you moving forward, serving the community, bigger or broader.
Environmental stewardship, tack on to that.
from our green teams.
And I think you touched on it a little bit when you talked about the number of B'nai Mitzvot, but I think about how do we balance the demand for services and resources against how we're providing those resources and services.
Say that again.
How do we balance the demands for services against the resources that we have in the country? Well, this doesn't have to be the end of the conversation. It's just the beginning of the conversation. If you have other thoughts, if you just want to email them to us, but we'll also be picking up on this as we go on.
Yeah, we're going to start to do something with these next week.
I'm going to turn it over to Mitch real quick to do a wind-up. Can you do that?
Very quickly, if you look in tab 1, at the first page was the outline of what took place tonight. If you turn that page over, and I don't want to think of this as homework, and let's think of this as a discussion stimulus for next week. We'd like you to think about these 4 points, about, in general, what makes Temple Jeremiah unique. For you specifically, the same question, what is there about Temple Jeremiah? If you were selling the temple, how would you go about prioritizing the points that you see in A and B when talking to others, and then asking you to look at a big picture? What do you feel that this Temple Jeremiah community values the most? What do you think are the values of this community? It's really, this becomes a real stretch, particularly given where we are in this very introduction to this particular program. If you could just look through the materials in the book, familiarize yourself with what's in tab 2. In the blue tab, they'll be talking about these various areas of the program on the measuring success. That particular program is presented in there. The long-range plan is presented, so we should have some familiarity when whoever the speaker is, they reference certain pages. You'll know where at least to look. And just glance through the other tabs. You'll see that we'll have a change in section 4, the yellow, is we're bringing in an outside speaker to talk about issues of leadership. You'll circle back in terms of some of the ideas that we'll be raising in sections 2 and sessions 2 and 3. And then it'll be Bob Royplan will be coming in session 4. And then session 5 is where we're going to try and put this all together and have an opportunity to meet one-on-one. Each of the past presidents will be meeting with you one-on-one in terms of what's going to happen next. Because the promise that we made in developing the program and the promise that we gave to Ken and to the board and to the rabbi is that the last thing we will have happen is that you will be left in limbo after these 5 sessions together over the period of the next several months. There will be opportunities for everybody, opportunities that will really satisfy what you would like to do here at Temple Jeremiah. So again, on behalf of everybody, all the presenters, on behalf of the rabbi, thank you very much for coming. And we're only 5 minutes late. Thank you.